they had to turn people away at the gates. 10-1 Detroit hosted the 11-0 Chicago Bears in a matchup that to this day featured the most combined wins by two teams heading into a Thanksgiving Day game. The Bears would win 19-16 and stay undefeated. The Lions have played on the holiday every year since 1934, minus a stretch from 1939 to 1944. No Thanksgiving Day games were held from 41 to 44 due to World War II observance. Skip ahead to 1951, where the Lions and Packers produced the highest scoring game on Thanksgiving Day history with 87 combined points. Did you know the very first televised Thanksgiving game was broadcast by the now defunct Dumont Television Network in 1953? CBS would take over the broadcast in 1956. But now, let's jump ahead to 1962.
Coaching the Packers has been an unequal thrill for Vince Lombardi, who has at his disposal perhaps the greatest football team ever assembled.
We're going to talk more about that. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody here on the Sports Talk with Chris Heidel. I'm Chris Heidel. That's Adam Rise down there in beautiful North Carolina. I'm up here in Maryland. So we're going to preview some of the Thanksgiving football games tonight here on the program. We got, Bills and Lions, or it's the Detroit's second team, if you want to call it, because they were just there over the weekend playing the Cleveland Browns. And then, folks, and then we will talk some. Let's look at the schedule here. Then we'll talk some Bills football with Steve Tasker, former Bills All-Pro and currently part of One Bills Live on WGR Sports Radio 1500 in Buffalo. So let's bring in Dan Miller, the voice of the Detroit Lions. He's back home this Thursday, like every Thursday for Thanksgiving. So, Dan, thanks for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving, and I guess you're going to let the Bills stay around for an extra couple of days.
Yeah, it was nice to have them. We hope to not be quite as hospitable this time around, but it was nice that Ford Field could help out, and a great crowd there on Sunday for their game with Cleveland. So, pretty cool thing for people here in Detroit that got to go to the game, but you also had a pretty solid influx of Buffalo and Cleveland fans as well. So they were the home team for that one. We feel like we'll probably take that home team thing back on Thursday and see how it goes.
Yeah. Question about that game on last Sunday. Was it free tickets for people who try to get there from Buffalo? Because I know years ago the NFL did one of those, like, if you could get to the stadium and if you're part of that team, it's free. Just say hello or donate something to a team or something. Or did you know anything about that?
Yeah, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. We were kind of setting our sights on the Giants. I think tickets were only like $10 and $30 though. They weren't very much compared to most NFL ticket prices, but they were not giveaway, and they went really quickly. They had 56,000, I think, something like that sold. They didn't open up the boxes or anything, but everything else sold out real quick.
Yeah. So this is the third matchup between Bills and Lions on Thanksgiving. One was back in the 70s, and then Steve Tasker is going to be coming on in a couple minutes. After you, he was there when you guys played them back in the in '94, with Barry Sanders going wild, against the Bills defense.
Yeah, and look, this is a significant test for the Lions. I mean, I know the Bills have kind of been up and down a little bit lately, but you look at the odds, they're still the Super Bowl favorite right now. This is a terrific team, high-powered offense, defense, certainly getting things done as well. The Lions have played better of late, but clearly, after wins over the Packers and the Bears and the Giants, this is going to be a step up in competition to play in this game. So, look, there's a lot of history, a lot of excitement when it comes to this game, but when all is said and done and you get down to Sunday and they kick it off, it's a football game. These two teams, are made up of what's happened so far and where they're going in the future, and we'll see what happens.
Adam, you got a question?
Yeah. First of all, Dan, not only is it football on Thanksgiving, it's also my birthday, so I will be celebrating watching the Bills and Lions. But you guys up there have a rookie on defense who's a home stater. He's played college ball at the University of Michigan. So how cool is it to have Aiden Hutchinson on defense for the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think obviously, and a little happy birthday ahead of time to you, but I think that, look, I think Aiden came in with half the fan base loving him because it's half Michigan fans. The Michigan State fans probably took him a little longer to warm up to him, but he's done some nice things for this team. Look, there are times where he's looked like a rookie, and that's what you expect. And it's difficult to, figure out what being a pass rusher in this league is when the guys you're going up against are worlds better than what you've, been playing against in college, where you were always probably the best player on the field. But we're seeing him start to get it. We're seeing things start to click. He's got a couple of interceptions in the last 3 weeks. He had a fumble recovery as well this past weekend. And, we're seeing him now more comfortable in a 2-point stance instead of where they had him down with his hand in the dirt. So it's coming along. He's a really talented player who wants to be good. It doesn't always happen right away, but we're certainly seeing signs that it's moving in the right direction with him.
Yeah. Dan, with the short week after playing the Giants, I guess there's a lot of people still banged up and bruised up. Is Josh Passel, the guy from Kentucky, is he playing Thursday? Because he's a kid from Maryland who I had on the show a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I don't think so. He hurt his knee a couple of weeks ago, and I think he's still probably at least a week away. You never know see what happens between now and game time, but I still think that Josh, is probably going to have a little more downtime, and he's looked really good. He's done some nice things for him. He was coming off surgery, got back in the lineup, and then he had the setback with the knee. But when he was in there, he was showing a lot of what they hoped he would bring, and that's the ability to really push things up front and be a force up there. And I think once he's healthy and once he's able to kind of stake out his territory and play consistently, he's going to be a real nice addition to that defensive front.
Adam, you got a question for Dan?
Yeah, now, Dan, I also noticed that you are the sports director at the local Fox affiliate up there. So the PBA Tour is going back to Thunderbolt next year in Allen Park. So you should try to get some interviews with like EJ Tackett, Jason Belmonte, maybe even Kimberly Pressler, who's a Laneside reporter. So, talk to us what it's like to play football on Thanksgiving.
Well, I mean, number one, let me say this. It's always an exciting time to have that event here. We have one of our guys in our office who's a big bowler, so I know people get excited about that. And this is a big bowling town, which is probably the reason they have that tournament here. So that's always a welcome addition. We love any events like that here. Look, I hear people say to me sometimes, man, you always have to work on Thanksgiving. There's no place I'd rather be. It is such an awesome place to be in downtown Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. The vibe down there, the electricity you feel in the city with all the people coming down there. You've got the parade going on at the same time. So there's a lot happening downtown on Thursday. And, it's baked into the fabric of Detroit and of Michigan. I mean, this is something that, you did with your grandparents and your parents, and now you're passing on to your children, and the roots run deep in this state. So this is part of who we are here, and people are fiercely protective of that. You got to play better. They haven't won in a while on Thanksgiving Day, so you got to figure that thing out. But look, it's such a big part of not just pro football, but of life here in Michigan to say that, whatever you do, whether you're with family or traveling or whatever it is, that football is part of life in Michigan, and especially on Thanksgiving Day.
And it's also a tradition, because it's cool that at 12:30 on Thursday you got the Lions at 12:30. It's not 4:30 because the 4:30 time is the Cowboys, and now you have that other Thursday night game, the third one. But it's always, when I was a kid growing up, it was Lions and Cowboys. That was it, and enjoy it, and and sometimes you might pass out during the Cowboys game with the MSG in the turkey.
Yeah, no, look, and we like having the early game, and folks can kind of plan their meal around that. And, a lot of people go to the game and then come home and eat, or whatever they may do, or eat during the game if you don't go to the game. So it's, look, families have traditions built around the game and how they do things, and when you arrive to be with other family and how you gather and things like that. So it's awesome. It gives us the opportunity to do the game, then get home, probably catch the second half of the Dallas game, and then watch whatever game they put on at night. So it's part of a great day. And then we got Michigan, Ohio State coming up on Saturday. So this is a big couple of days for folks here in Michigan.
And the winner goes to Indianapolis, and the other one gets ready to go to maybe somewhere in the college football playoff. And I feel like I saw both of them this year, Michigan and Ohio State, in separate games. And I feel like Michigan might have the edge because I think Michigan is a little more well-rounded than Ohio State. But I was not impressed by their quarterback.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Michigan's got they didn't pass the ball well in their last game. They've not really been moving it through the air. I think they're going to have to score a good number of points to win this game against Ohio State. You're not going to do it with field goals. So I think the key thing for Michigan is just completing some of the drives that we haven't seen them complete recently. Get back to the point where, J.J. McCarthy's able to throw the ball down the field, hit what he's throwing at, because, look, you're not going to beat Ohio State with 17 points. You're going to have to score to win this game because they're going to be scoring. So, look, they're both undefeated. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is what we thought it would be. So let's roll them out there and see what happens. And, one of these teams wins, they'll be heavily favored to win the Big Ten championship and then head to the playoff. For the loser, well, you're kind of leaving your fate in other people's hands. So that's what you're trying to avoid.
Hey, this could start something for you guys. I think there's last 7 games of the season, and I just read something before you came on. Try to get to the postseason, and the Lions don't really go to the postseason that much.
No, and look, you've put yourself back in the conversation over the last 3 weeks, winning 3 games in a row, and that's really all you've done. You've given yourself the ability to, climb back on the graphic, if you will. Some people like to call it, but. Look, you got 7 games left. I would think you probably need to win 5 of those to have a shot at getting in the playoffs, and even that might not be enough. We'll have to wait and see, but they can't, based on what's happened to the Lions this year, they can't worry about anything bigger than what's in front of them, which is, again, the Super Bowl favorites and the Buffalo Bills. So you can't really worry about the last 6 without worrying about this one first, and trying to find some way to take care of business against the team that you're a significant underdog against.
Exactly. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving. I know you, when the game is over Thursday, you're going to speed down the highway and get home for some turkey and stuffing, and probably forget about the game after the game is over. But I wish you and your family a great Thanksgiving, and good luck with the broadcast on Thursday. I
appreciate it. We hope we're celebrating at dinner. But either way, it'll be nice to be with family, and I wish you and yours the best, and all your viewers and listeners the best as well. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, Dan. All right, that's Dan Miller, the voice of the Detroit Lions, and also one of the sportscasters. I think he was the sports director out there in Detroit.
Yeah.
So Detroit taking on the Buffalo Bills, or like we were just saying before we came on, the Detroit second team. But you didn't know something. The fact, did you know that when the Bills became a team in the AFL, they didn't really wear the blue and white and the red. They wore Detroit Lions uniforms.
Wow!
Yeah.
I never knew that, Chris. So,
they did. They changed. They had a. They did when they got into the AFL. Their first season, they looked like, because the owner Wilson, Ralph Wilson was the partial owner of the Detroit Lions. So he had jerseys look like the Detroit Lions, so they had the same colors, and then they decided in 61 or 62 to change it. Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff, huh?
Yeah, cool.
I just learned a lot. I just watched videos. Yeah, so
cool.
Yeah. So let's bring this gentleman in. This guy is a Buffalo Bill great. He was part of the great run from the Buffalo Bills back in the early 90s. I know, and look at Adam bringing out his hat. That would be great. So Steve Tasker joining us here on the program. Good evening, Steve. Thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
No problem. Did you get finally digged out with all the snow? Did you get out of your house with all that?
Finally. It took a few days. My driveway got done. The snow hit Thursday night, Friday. My driveway finally got plowed Sunday late afternoon.
Wow.
We had to walk in and out, before we could get anywhere, and I couldn't get a vehicle out of my driveway. So I was, I got local kids that are here, and their driveways got plowed. So I had a way to shuttle people around. Plus I had like 10 people staying at my house for the Bills Cleveland game that didn't happen in Buffalo. So it turned into a pretty catastrophic weekend, but we got through it.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm glad everybody was safe, and you made it out to Detroit. Did you get to Detroit?
No, I didn't. I don't have to go to Detroit. I don't travel with the club.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is, it's very cool. I traveled enough when I was with CBS, so.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm done with that. I'm going to stay home. And
travel's overrated, particularly at this point in history.
Exactly. Well, you played against the Lions back in one Thanksgiving, and some guy named Barry Sanders just ran all over you.
Yeah, Barry Sanders and Herman Moore and those guys had it. They got us pretty good. They hit us with a flea flicker early in the game. I'll tell you what, when you hand it to Barry, everybody jumps the line. Everybody's running up to the ball. So they hand it off to Barry, and he turns around, pitches it back, I think, to Scott Mitchell maybe. Mm-hmm. Herman Moore got behind us for a touchdown. So
look at Jim Kelly just running. Yeah, that's the old Jim Kelly. Yeah. That's awesome.
It was a good game, and we've talked about it too. I think the Lions really show up in these games. They really show up big, and those kind of, it's a tradition for them. They take great pride in it. The crowd is absolutely off its rocker, and you got to be ready for that. You got to weather that storm early in this game to get on. If you can get on top of them, kind of take the crowd out of it, because I think this is a crowd that's traditionally really, really raucous.
And it's like this is the Lions Super Bowl pretty much, because they really don't get in the postseason that much.
And this is a big year for them too. I mean, they're 4-6, and they're on a 3-game winning streak. They play hard for Dan Campbell. They're a little bit of the flavor of the month because Hard Knocks early in the season kind of gave people a glimpse into how good a guy Dan Campbell is, and people are pulling for him. And this is they win this game, go to 5-6. They got a shot at it. If they finish strong, they got a chance. So, yeah, it's a huge game for Detroit.
That's awesome. Let's bring in Adam's a big Bills fan. So
it's called. I mean, when Chris told me you were coming on the show, Steve, obviously I had to wear my Bills Mafia hat. Now, you played with legends like Jim Kelly and Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas. Your coach was Marv Levy. So,
Bruce. Yeah.
So what was it like to play in front of all those crazy fans at then known as Rich Stadium?
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere. It was a huge stadium, one of the biggest in the league. They started, it was 80,250. And then over the years, as they renovated every 10 or 15 years, they would put more premium seating in. They'd put more amenities in, and the total number of seats would go down. The stadium was still, it looked virtually the same. They put in, new boxes on each end of it. They closed in the space in between the two upper decks on both ends. And now I think it holds 72,000, maybe 70,000. And it's loud. It's constructed to be really loud. And it's one of those rare instances where you've got an entire generation of fans who, grew up with the team not being very good. And now they got a really good football team, and they're loving every minute of it. And also, for whatever reason, this Bills Mafia thing that started a few years ago by Del Reed and these guys and the 26 shirts people. Bills fans have a different kind of aura about them in that not only did the fan base grew bigger during 20 years of mediocrity, mm-hmm. It also has a penchant for having an affection not only for their team but for each other. Bills fans like each other. They commiserated together for so many years that they reached out and they put their arms around the shoulders of the Bills fans on both sides of them. They kind of endured it together, and now they've carried that into this team where they got this this wrecking crew of a team they're cheering for now. And it's a pretty cool atmosphere, and it's a very nice vibe around the team. The team is easy to cheer for. They're a great bunch of guys, great bunch of football players, obviously, but a great bunch of human beings. They tend to have, seems like they have a lot of real genuine affection for each other. It's kind of like those great teams in the 90s did after a while. And so it's a very, very cool bandwagon to be riding on right now.
Yeah. Well, Steve, you started your career in Houston, and then you ended up in Buffalo. So what was it like going from a town like Houston, who was a great football town because it's just like, like Buffalo, they love their Oilers, now it's the Texans, but you went to upstate New York, and it's like you're like, wow, I'm near Canada. I could go to Toronto anytime I want to. So it's like Yeah, what was your reaction when you first said, "Hey," they said to you, "You're going to Buffalo"? You're like, "What?"
Well, yeah, it was. It was fine with me. I was excited that anybody else, the team knew who I was, let alone wanted me to play for them. So I was that young in my career. I was just trying to hang in there, go year to year, and do whatever I could to make myself valuable to the team I was on. And Jerry Glanville happened to be the head coach of the Oilers at that time, and love that guy. He's a tremendous guy. I love him. And they were going to waive me for 24 hours to sign me right back. And, back then it didn't work. And Marv had just gotten the job, and the Bills were looking to, kind of rinse through the bottom of their roster, get some help on special teams. One of their coaches had known me from the year before, my rookie year in Houston, Joe Faragelli. Came in, said, "Hey, Marv, if you're trying to get some help on special teams, this kid can play him." And, later on in your career, you think Marv was like, "Wow, Steve Tasker's available. That's awesome, man. Yeah, of course we're going to pick him up." But at that point in my career, nobody knew me. Marv just shrugged his shoulders, says, "Okay, pick him up." There's nothing more to it than that, So, and I tell people all the time, think about it. I walked into my first meeting with the Buffalo Bills, and it was the night before Marv Levy's first game as head coach. I was the first brand new player they signed after Marv got the job. And I walk into the room, and Marv Levy's the head coach. Bill Polian is in the back of the room. He's the general manager. Jim Kelly's in the room. Bruce Smith's in the room. And Andre Reed's in the room. And Ralph owns the team. So every one of those guys is a Hall of Famer now, and nobody knew it then.
Right.
And so I walk into that, and I tell you, like, here, being on your podcast tonight, it's just one more instance. And it's Herb FM Sports Radio. I'm still cashing that lottery ticket. Those guys, that team was just an absolute gift. It was an absolute gift for me to be a part of it.
Yeah, I knew you as a special teamer. I didn't know you occasionally were in the wide receiver, when, late in the game. And if Jim Kelly needed to touch, we saw some highlights of you getting some catches from Jim Kelly. But I remember you being a special teamer, knowing that, and you showed, and when I was a kid growing up, you showed me that you can still play football, even if you're on special teams, and you can still make a living out of it. If you're knocking people around after kickoffs and punts. Yeah, I played in the real golden era of special teams. It was before player safety had changed the rules and kind of limited their ability to make a difference, making it more hard for teams to make something happen on special teams. There's much more freewheeling, and there's a lot more bad things that could happen and a lot more mistakes you could force back in the day when I was playing. Plus, the rosters had gotten big enough. At 45 guys on game day, you were going to have a handful at least of guys who did nothing much more than play special teams. So teams were learning the value of having guys who could really make some hay on special teams and play better than the other team. Then you win back those roster spots with the field position we could get, or the occasional turnover we could get, or the touchdown we could get. So the game expanded into special teams big time in the late 70s, early 80s. And it was right after, I don't know whether it was 82, maybe 82 strike, that they started putting special teams guys on the Pro Bowl ballot, on the Pro Bowl rosters. And that opened up that avenue for guys really thirsty to contribute on special teams. And when the rosters got big, special teams came into the league and started to make contributions that had never been done before. And that was the era that I played in, and I was very lucky to have done that. That's cool. Well, let's just talk about the Bills today. Last week they went to Detroit with all the snow and trying to get out of Buffalo to get to Detroit. They were flat when they first started out the game, and the Browns took advantage of that. And then they took the lead at the half, and then I guess the Browns basically the Bills woke up in the second half. So what do they need? Are they in Detroit right now getting ready for the game? Did they get back? No, it's such a quick flight from Detroit. They just hopped on a flight and came home. It's like a taxi ride from Buffalo to Detroit. You just hop on the buses, get to the airport, get off the bus and come home. Plus, everybody here in Buffalo, all their families and stuff. You saw some of the stories probably of what it took for them to get out of town. Yeah, to leave their families. Yeah. Right. So not just to the police escort, that was after the buses, after they had gotten to the stadium to go get on the buses. Oh, wow.
The problems they had from getting their houses to the stadium to get on the buses to leave town was epic. Every guy had his own issues. And so they had all these guys to get to the travel thing. So, and all these guys were snowed in. And I'm talking, it was 77 inches of snow, 6 feet, 5 inches of snow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a problem. And so guys had to leave their families, their wives and their kids, the girlfriends, the people they're living, the support crew got left high and dry by these players. They had to leave. So, they weren't going to stay in Detroit while everybody dug out.
Right.
So they came right back home. The guys got a chance to go back, help their families, get back to their families, get their houses in order, make sure their furnaces were working and, and they had power and all that stuff. So everybody kind of dug out over that, Sunday and late Monday and gave them a chance they came back. So today, this last couple of days, yesterday, today, they were back at the facility. And I think one of the things that gets lost in this is one of the reasons this team's really good, and it goes top to bottom from Terry and Kim Pagula all the way down to, the guys shoveling. They've got a really good protocol and system of sports science that gets these guys ready to play, gets them healthy, gets them recuperated, gets them rehabilitated, keeps them healthy. Just the sports science here has really been part of this story of the success of the franchise. So they wanted to get back here because it's not just about having the right weight machine. It's not about having, the cryo chamber or the hyperbaric chambers or the ice baths or whatever. They got them staffed for all these guys. So it's not just the multi-million-dollar guys who are paying for their own chiropractor or their own acupuncture or their own stim machines or whatever. They've got a whole staff of people. Every guy on the roster has access to what the multi-million-dollar athletes have access to on other teams. So they wanted to get back to Buffalo, take advantage of all that, get back into the routine, get back to their families for a minute, get their personal lives on track and safe and secure so they could come back and think about football. So while it makes some sense to stay in, Detroit to do this, I think on the personal note for the team, it was important for the guys and the coaches to get back and take care of their families and all it took was 12 hours to get all this stuff, a handle on all this. But they gave them those 12 hours back in Buffalo.
That's awesome. Adam, you have the last question
yeah,
for Steve?
Now, when you were announced with CBS Sports, you were paired with Don Criqui, and
yeah.
Don is a legendary announcer. So, what was it like to be paired with someone like Don Criqui?
Well, Don was a great mentor for me. I got him right after my first year with CBS. I was with him for 6 years. I was actually with him longer than Bob Trumpy had been with him. So
wow.
we were together 6 years straight, and I love Don. He was great. He's a great mentor. He's a great friend of mine. I love how you can talk to – you hear announcers do games, and you see them do games, and you picture what they're like. Don Criqui was an old school guy. When he had the mic in his hand, he was, figuratively speaking, he was wearing a tuxedo and he was on stage and he was in control and he was in show business. I mean, that guy was a top-notch performer, ready for anything. Just, he was old school doing it in a tuxedo. A guy like Dick Enberg, rest his soul, he was more like a guy in a cardigan sweater, Gus was, Gus Johnson, also a really close friend of mine. Gus was a star. I mean, I thought Gus was as good as it gets. I mean, I really think Gus Johnson was as talented and as fun to listen to for fans as anybody ever worked with. He's an absolute superstar. And of course, Jim Nantz is like you're sitting there drinking with a good friend. Jim Nantz is your friend. You really feel like you're watching this game with somebody you've known for a long time. One of the most comfortable listens you'll ever have. And so those are the guys, I was on the sidelines for Jim Nantz, but with Gus and Don, I was together with Bill McAtee, a great pro, true professional. Tim McCarthy, I worked with there at CBS as well. And then, the guy that's really my closest friend there that I've stayed in touch with and work with even now in the preseason is Andrew Catalon, who now he did the Bills Cleveland game for CBS. I did Andrew's first game with him. We've become personal friends and we keep in touch. And He is as smooth and professional as I've seen. His ability to inform people so comfortably, but pour so much information into a broadcast that really is comfortable and fun and informative. He's just tremendous. So all those guys have been great. Don Criqui, you're right. Tremendous. I was there when he got inducted into the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame, Greater Buffalo Broadcast Hall of Fame, and just a tremendous voice. Don Criqui had. He was like the voice of God. He was in authority, and he was projecting, and he was public speaking when he did the games, and he was a true pro, and it was his style harkened back to the beginning of he'd done them in 5 decades. He did games in 5 different decades. He broadcast on radio the Tom Dempsey 63-yard field goal on Thanksgiving or Christmas or whenever it was. Tom Dempsey 63-yard field goal in Tulane Stadium against the Detroit Lions. That in 1963.
Jeez.
That's how long he did games. He was a fantastic voice. And it was a privilege to work with him, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember Don Criqui doing the Orange Bowl, or on CBS on NBC. He goes, "Hi, Don Criqui, and welcome to the Orange Bowl." And I'm like,
I think he did I think he did 20 of those, or more than 20 of those. He was on that broadcast year in, year out, and he was just absolutely stellar.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for being a part of the show. And I hope everything goes well up there in Buffalo. And I heard it's supposed to rain this weekend, so you might have a flood now.
Yeah, well, maybe. But I appreciate you guys. No worries. We're okay up here. We handle it. Everybody kind of, you can't get ready for it. It's not easy, but we've been through it before. So it's as much a blessing as it is a curse. So appreciate you guys, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, and have a great Thanksgiving to everybody.
All right, you too, guys.
All right,
bye-bye.
Coffee on Thursday.
All right.
All right, that's Steve Tasker, folks. You can watch the Bills and Lions Thursday afternoon at 12:30 on CBS. So that's it. I had to say that. I feel like Jim Nance right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's called Steve Tasker.
That was a great interview.
I remember, all those, in the 90s when it was, Jim Kelly at quarterback, and you had all those Super Bowls the Bills lost, and it's like, but Steve Tasker is one of the greats, and
I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, because
he should be in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame. He's a legend up there in Western New York. He was on all those great teams, with Jim Kelly and Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith. Man,
Well, it's rivalry week. Let's switch the page here. It's rivalry week in college football. Week 13, you got everybody playing each other. You got Notre Dame taking on USC. You have Alabama and Auburn going at it. Michigan, like we just talked to Dan Miller from out there in Detroit. Michigan, Ohio State. That's a battle between who's going to go to the Big Ten championship game. The one that we like is the one down south, and down in the Sunshine State, where hopefully it's sunny and warm on Friday, on Friday night, but it looks like it's going to be some thunderstorms in the area. But classic Florida State, Florida. This is not like the Florida State and Florida from old, when this is the regular season finale, and the one team is going to go to the national championship game, or the one going to go to probably the Gator Bowl. But it's still Florida State, Florida. It's not College Game Day going to be down there. So we're going to play little clips of classic Florida State, Florida highlights. We're going to start off with the first one. Adam, were you around in 1993?
I sure was, and I remember these two gentlemen, Charlie Ward and Warwick Dunn.
Let's sit back and listen to our great friend Gene Deckenhoff with the call here on here with this clip.
Ward takes the snap, play action, runs, looks, pops out of the pocket, runs to his left, throws it downfield. It is caught by Dunn. He's got the first down to the 40, down to the 50, down the sideline to the 40, down to the 30. He separates. He's to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown! touchdown, Florida State. Warwick Dunn on third down. Unbelievable. Gene, I tell you what a great play by Charlie Ward. As he was just corralled back there, came out. He picked up the streaking. Warwick Dunn down the left sideline and laid it over his shoulder for the big touchdown.
Yeah, so Florida State winning that game, in 1993 on their way to the national title game, taking on Nebraska in the Orange Bowl with Don Criqui with the call.
Yes, sir.
And Florida State beat Nebraska that night, 16-14. And I remember I was a kid. I was a little guy sleeping in my bedroom, and I went to bed. And I was watching Florida State, and I remember putting the games used to be on AM radio when I was a kid. So you could get any game on WBAL radio here in Baltimore or down there in North Carolina. You could probably get somebody down there as well. And then, I put the radio on and I fell asleep. And I got up to go to the restroom, and I was like, and I still have the radio still on because my mom normally comes in and turns the radio off when she goes to bed. She comes in and turns it off, and I know, she went to bed. So I listened to this, and then all of a sudden I hear, "Here's a sports update," and I'm like sleeping. I hear, "Yes, it was a thriller in the Orange Bowl," and then they played a clip of somebody, with Bentley hitting the field goal to win the game, and I jumped up and going, "What?" Yeah. It was like 3 a.m. I was doing like fist pumping in my bed doing that, and then the next morning I got, when I got up to that morning, I go, "Mom, Florida State won the national title." And then my mom goes, "Really?" I was like, "They beat Nebraska?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Let's go to church now." I'm like, "Okay." Let's go. Yeah, I think it was like a Saturday night or something like that. Mm-hmm. So Florida State, Florida, big rivalry, all-time series. The Gators have a lead on us. 37-26 with 2 ties. And, one of those ties was the Classic.
Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I remember.
Joke at the dope,
Yes.
When we came back and, beat Steve Spurrier and the Gators, and they were up 31-3 on us or something like that.
And then we came back and we tied them.
Yeah, we tied them, and back then they didn't go to overtime. It was like
it's called when you tied. That was it.
Tie. Yeah. So currently the Gators have a 3-game winning streak on us. Probably because we've been struggling, but this year we'll be the well-oiled machine of Mike Norvell and the running game. Rolling in. They're home this Friday night against the Gators, so it's a Black Friday. Hopefully it's going to be a Black Friday massacre for the Gators.
I think it will, Chris. I mean, Florida, lost to Vanderbilt, and now they have to go face
they
their
lost to Vanderbilt. Come on now, he lost to Vandy. Like who does that? I mean, you don't lose to Vandy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in look at Florida. I mean, we talked before we went on the air. It's called Florida State right now is one of the hottest teams in the country, and I think the way Florida State's been playing, I think they can go against another game against Clemson. I think Florida State would win. I surely do.
Yeah. We're waiting for David Waters to join us. He does the Gators Breakdown in Jacksonville, Florida. He does a TV show breaking down the Gators. So we're going to have Gators here, and then at the around the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be on until 9:30 tonight because we got some great stuff coming up here on the program. And you got Mike Burnham coming up at 8:40. We got to talk about that Virginia situation. They are talking about playing next weekend instead of this weekend, but that's a slow talk. So we don't know what Virginia wants to do because they're still wheeling from that horrible thing they did last 2 Sundays ago down there in beautiful Charlottesville, North Carolina. Charlottesville, Virginia. Near Charlottesville, North Carolina. There is one probably there too. And then coming up at 9:05, we'll have James Coleman, former Florida State running back, who's a friend been on the show a couple times. He will talk a little more about the Florida State side of it with Florida State and Florida because it's I got to use that like that line from one of those movies is old-fashioned heat.
Yep. And then Chris, I believe we're gonna have a couple high school coaches on.
Yeah. Well, we do have one coming on, Anthony Zehyoue, who's the head coach of Loyola High School here in Maryland. But here's the funny thing is I just found out he went to LSU.
Oh.
So he was part of the LSU's national championship team, and he came here to Baltimore to get a teaching job. So we'll talk a little LSU, Texas A&M, because that's who they're playing this weekend. In these rivalry weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should have kept the Alabama LSU game for this end of this week.
Oh yeah.
That's a little more rivalry because.
Yeah, I would have to agree, Chris.
I'm sorry, LSU and Texas A&M is not really a rivalry. Okay, who stole whose 12th man? Yeah,
I got no clue.
Yeah, so what's this? So we're waiting for David Ward. I guess he's waiting to come on, but we do have to play another clip. Waiting for him. Hopefully he'll join us shortly here at 7:41 on a Tuesday night. I know this is a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so a lot of people have travel plans or they have to get themselves ready for travel tomorrow because that's why we always do the show on Tuesday, the week of Thanksgiving, because it's been a tradition for us, and we've been doing this for a couple of months on Tuesdays. So let's bring in 1994 here. This is a classic. I remember this game when I was watching the game with my brother Matt is a Gator fan, so it's pretty funny that I have a Gator and a Hurricane in my family. So I got to fight off two of them during the football season. So here is the radio call from our good friend Gene Deckenhoff again, because Gene is the voice of Florida State. No offense to our good friend, who does the new voice of Florida State football. I'll try to get a hold of him today, but I had some situations I couldn't get to. But we'll try to get him on another time down the road. So let's see here. Yeah, it's Jeff Colhane's, who is the voice of the Florida State Seminoles now. Big shoes to fill. I'm sorry, really big shoes to fill. When you replace it, it's almost like replacing Chris Schenkel. I know Dave Ryan had to go through that a lot, because Chris Schenkel is the guy you think bowling, Chris Schenkel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's the clip of the classic 1994 win of Choke at the Doak.
One timeout left. Now Cannell. Clock starts. Right sideline. Got him out of bounds at the 48. 17 seconds. McCorvey. 17 seconds. Cannell steps up against the pressure. Got to get the first down to stop the clock. And he didn't get it. The clock is going to continue to run with 10 seconds. He's got to stop this baby.
Line up and down it.
He's got to down it. It's going to run out on him.
It's out.
Didn't do it. This game is over. A 31-31 tie. A 31-31 tie.
I like the opera music in the background. I found that on YouTube.
Yeah,
who put the opera in the background? I had a chance a couple of years ago, Adam, to meet Steve Spurrier.
Nice. Cool.
And to me, Spurrier is evil. Pure evil.
And that was Brent Musburger and
Yes.
Nick Vermeil on the call for ABC Sports.
Yes.
I mean,
Brent Musburger. Who
yeah.
retired as a Raiders broadcaster. He was last year. He was in Oakland. Yeah, he was in Las Vegas for a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, and Chris, I mean, I kind of miss when ABC Sports had regional coverage. In the '90s, you had a game from the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Pac-10.
And Keith Jackson and Bob Greasy doing the game.
Yeah.
And now it's like Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. Against Kirk Herbstreit, I think he's a very good broadcaster. He does great with Thursday Night Football. The X and O's on the NFL. I thought he was going to fumble, but I feel like he's just doing what he does on Saturday night with Al Michaels and with Keith Jackson. Those were games with Keith Jackson with the calls sometimes.
It was a big game.
Oh,
You knew Keith Jackson was on.
Oh yeah. You knew it was a big game on ABC when Keith Jackson and Bob Greasy and Lynn Swan on the sideline.
Oh yeah.
They were there, ready to go. Yeah. So it's really good stuff. So we're gonna switch gears here because we'll try to get David Waters to join us, but we'll bring in We'll talk some NFL here again. The Baltimore Ravens on a hot streak, won 4 in a row. Didn't play real well last week in Baltimore against the Carolina Panthers. It looked like the wind or the cold or whatever. Yeah, but they go down to sunny Florida. Hopefully it's warmer than up here. So let's bring in JP SHADRICK, who is a well-known broadcaster. First of all, he does a lot of Jaguar stuff during the weeks, and then during the weekends, he does stuff for Westwood One for college football and the NFL. So we'll talk some both NFL and college. So hi, JP. How you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Great to see you. Thanks for having me, and we're fired up for a busy week ahead. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. It's a good week of football. You got starting. I think they start Thursday at 12:30 with the Lions, and we go all the way through Saturday with these big games. Like we got Friday night. What game are you doing for college? Because I know last week you did the Rose Bowl. When I was looking at your Twitter, and you were like, "This is the mecca of football." Yeah, I'm like, yeah. You're like, you were so happy to be there.
Well, I had never been to. I've actually never been to Los Angeles until last week. I grew up in Alabama, so I'm just a kid from the country. But to see the Rose Bowl in all its glory at sunset with that rivalry game was fantastic. And then this week, it gets even bigger because we're heading to the Horseshoe to do Michigan Ohio State on Westwood One with an 11:30 pregame, 12 o'clock kick, and doesn't get much bigger than that. Number 2 versus number 3, both undefeated. And I don't know if there's going to be anybody left walking off the field after it's done.
Yeah. Let's talk about real quick before we talk Jaguar football. Let's talk about Michigan and Ohio State. I saw both of them this year. I went out to Michigan to see Michigan and Maryland on a nice crappy day. And then I saw them at Ohio State against Penn State. I was not impressed by the Ohio State's quarterback, but I felt like he's made of the system. I feel like he has good wide receivers like Harrison Jr. and everything else. And I feel like he threw a lot of things up against the wall and see what sticks, in that game against Penn State. And he didn't have a good game against Penn State. And Michigan, that Chrome guy who's actually from D.C. here, he's a good running back, So, you got that great running game and all that stuff. So what do you see in your early observation?
Well, I had Ohio State a couple times last year, and I had the game when they played Michigan State, and he threw 6 touchdown passes and left the game in the middle of the third quarter. And Michigan State had no answers for those 3 receivers. Of course, we're talking about all the guys that are in the NFL now that are doing all those things. And you're kind of right. All you had to do was throw it up, and Garrett Wilson's just going to run underneath it for about 70 yards and a touchdown. And same with Olave. But there were some pinpoint throws back in that game that I saw in person that were okay. He had to make a couple throws, middle of the end zone, put it where his receiver could only get it, that kind of thing. But he still, at that kind of place, you're going to have elite receivers. I mean, and that's the way it's going to go. And most of the time, you'll be able to beat inferior players on the other side. A week like this week might be a little different, though. Michigan has a defense that can hang with some of those guys, a really good group. So I'm not going to downplay Stroud's ability. The guy can stand in there. If he has another big day, he'll be right there in the conversation and should go to New York as one of the Heisman finalists this year. Next level stuff, I don't know. A little too early for that on the NFL talk. If he's going to be that kind of quarterback, I don't know about that yet. Let's see what he can do against Michigan first. I think he's only worried about this game.
Yeah, this is a lot of media people there. You got College Game Day on one side of the campus. You got the big game on big new kickoff and Fox, who has the game, and you're doing the game on the radio. Is there anybody going to be in different? Is Columbus going to be jam-packed and can you drive through it on Saturday morning?
I wouldn't be shocked by that. That's on a normal Saturday, and this is not a normal Saturday. So I'm excited for it. I'll get there about 4:30 in the afternoon on Friday, and then I'm sure we'll get up as early as we can and just get down there because the parking spot is somewhere nearby over there. I don't know where, but getting in there is tough. Getting out of there is tougher. And it's what it is. It's big-time college football, and we're excited for the environment for sure.
That's awesome. Let's talk Jacksonville Jaguars. Ravens come to town on a 4-game winning streak. Lamar Jackson as quarterback. This is the first time the Ravens have played Jacksonville since that wonderful game in London that everybody here in Baltimore don't want to talk about because it was that stuff with Trump and all that stuff, and everything went haywire afterwards, and and Jacksonville just ran Baltimore out of London. Just talking to two different teams. Lawrence is now the quarterback. A guy from Clemson who won a couple of national titles, but he's learning the ropes of being a good quarterback in the NFL.
No doubt about that. And I remember that game like yesterday in London because it didn't look like the Ravens wanted to be there at all. I mean, they right out of the gate, it was all Jags all day. I think that was the Mercedes Lewis game where he had like 3 touchdowns, if I remember right. But there's been so many Jaguar London games. I think that's the one. Yep, we're looking at it right now.
Yep, there you
go. He had a big day at Wembley that day. This is it's a Jaguars offense that's pretty good between the 20s. They can move the football. The scheme is in, obviously, now. They're 10 games into the season. They're coming off the bye last week. And Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, the head coach, calls the plays, of course. Press Taylor's the offensive coordinator. Mike McCoy's the quarterback's coach. That's a good group around a second-year quarterback. And they've approached it almost like it's his rookie year. I know you can't take away those 17 games from last year, but it's so different with everything that was going on around the quarterback and the team last year with the coaching staff and the head coach. They don't really count that. So they almost started from scratch this offseason on how to approach the quarterback. Not many guys are better at that than Doug Peterson. He played the position. He coached the position as an assistant. He was the head coach. He won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. So he understands how to approach a guy and get the best out of him. And I think we've seen the last couple weeks, especially just before the bye week, 2 of Trevor's most efficient games. He's not going to throw it for 70 yards down the field. They don't have that big play ability right now. I think they'd like to find that if they can down the stretch. They may not have the personnel for that. But he's making better decisions. He had a turnover run early in the season. He had a 4 fumble game in Philly on a wet field and was just, callous disregard for the football is what Tom Coughlin would say in the old days. But he's kind of settled in now, and that's okay. And he's got some veteran receivers who can play, and he's got a running game with ETN. So the problem comes when they get in the red zone. There have been some bad decisions made by the quarterback, throwing into coverage, not throwing it away on 1st and goal with the 1, trying to throw it between 3 guys in London this year. That didn't work out. He's done that a couple times, in fact. Goal-to-go situations, they've struggled. Red zone, they can move it. They just got to figure it out in those situations. But they're on the right track. At least they're moving the ball, right? I mean, in the past, that hasn't happened around here.
And they got a good running back in Travis Etienne, and he knows him because he used to do it hanging off in college. So it's like it's an old hat, let me just give it to number 1 and let him run, like he used to do that in Clemson. So Adam, you have a question?
Yeah, JP, last week you were in SoCal for that USC and UCLA showdown. Do you think USC has a chance to get into the college football playoff semifinals? Like Caleb Williams looked incredible in that game against the Bruins.
Well, the rankings just came out, and they're behind LSU right now. So I don't think that will last. They're 6th in the rankings now. LSU's number 5, at least just a little earlier tonight. But with the schedule remaining, if USC runs the table, they're playing Notre Dame in the Coliseum this week. Notre Dame's right there. And then, of course, they'll play most likely Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. If they run the table with those 2, they got to find a way in, right? And if for some reason LSU knocks off Georgia, then that's bedlam, right? That could be the problem for Southern California. Michigan, Ohio State, whoever loses that game, hey, maybe they have an argument to sneak back in the back door if it's a close game. That's a big question for the committee at that point. A lot of what ifs right now. But from what I saw, I mean, this USC offense, when they get rolling and the quarterback's throwing it around, I mean, they are tough to stop. Their defense has some issues stopping other teams now. That's going to be a wart for them. They do take the ball away. That's the one thing they do very well. They don't stop them, but they take it away from them when they get down the field. So, all right. Are they a complete team? I don't know about that, USC, but they are a really dynamic offense, and the quarterback's playing well. They scheme it up great in the coaching staff, and they can answer in a big environment. like they did the other night. I think that's a big question for them. So, but in my opinion, if they run the table and everything else is status quo, and let's say Ohio State wins by 2 touchdowns, they have to be in. They have to be one of the top 4 teams in the country.
It should be, and they need it for the Pac-12 because if you're in the Pac, because USC and UCLA are going to go to the Big Ten, and this is something they can actually build on. And maybe they might, I think they will find somebody in the Pac-12 to fill these holes because the Pac-12 is still a classic, conference, and I don't want them to go to bye-bye because everybody's leaving.
It would be. I'll say it would be quite a statement for Lincoln Riley in year number 1 from a 4-win team last year. Now the trick is sustaining that moving ahead. We saw that last year with Michigan State. They brought in 22 transfers last season. Michigan State did, Mel Tucker, and they had a fantastic year. They were a couple wins away from being in the playoff themselves. They kind of faltered at the end. Obviously, at Ohio State, they couldn't do anything that day. Kenneth Walker was hurt. He was another one of those transfers. Well, now look at them this year, right? All those guys are either gone or have changed, and they haven't been able to sustain that. So you have to have a core recruiting base to go with a lot of those transfers that come in. It's hard to get 20 transfers a year to come to your program and have a cohesive unit. They've done it so far this year at Southern California, but that'll be the big question moving ahead. Can they jumpstart it with transfers, which it feels like they have, but can that grow into a recruiting base where you have a core group of guys and maybe a few transfers here and there to really fill out a team? And I think that's the challenge for SC.
That's true. Well, JP, I want to let you go. I know you're a busy guy. I know you have to get ready for both games this weekend. First, you got to get Michigan and Ohio State, and then you got to worry about Ravens and Jaguars. But I hope you have a great Thanksgiving Thursday, and make sure you enjoy your trip to Columbus, and hopefully you get back down to Jacksonville in time to see a very good, hopefully a very good football game. People don't realize the Ravens are they won 4 in a row, but they're struggling with the offense a little bit, and Jacksonville coming off that bye might be a little more ready to go.
I will leave you with this then. I hope the flight goes out on time Saturday night. It's an 8:00 flight. Snow's not in the forecast, so we should be okay. Unless we have like a 17 overtime game, and that would be awesome. I'll take it. But I'll leave you with this one. The last time Lamar Jackson played at TIAA Bank Field, the Gator Bowl, 2017, New Year's Eve against Mississippi State. He was with Louisville. It was his last college game. He ran for like 160 yards, had a 13-yard touchdown run, but he threw 4 interceptions, and Mississippi State won the game. That was his last college game, the last time he played in this stadium. I'm not saying it's going to happen again. I'm just saying. That's it.
Well, it's funny. JP was like a week before that. I saw him at the ACC championship. He won the Player of the Year, and I said, "You're going pro, right?" He goes, "I can't tell you." I was like, first of all, I'm not ESPN, so go. You can tell me because he actually knew who I was. Because I had him on when he was a rookie up in Louisville, and I was like, "You could tell me. I'm not going to say anything." I'm going to keep it to myself, and I'm not going to be these people. Oh, by the way, put it on Twitter. And then right after that game against Mississippi State, he goes, Lamar Jackson declared for the draft. I'm like, really? Do you really want to declare for the draft after having your worst college game?
I think it's worked out for him okay, but
I know.
It's really going to work out for him after the season when they pay him. So
yes, exactly. Hopefully. Well, I want to wish you and your family a great Thanksgiving, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one yourselves, and thanks for having me. We'll see you soon.
All right, see you soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks, JP.
Right. All right, that's JP Shamrick, who covers Jaguars and does that big game this weekend in Columbus between Michigan and Ohio State, where they should have been on ABC with Keith Jackson.
Yeah. College fit. Yeah, it was back in the 90s, but this 2022, but still.
So let's bring in David Waters real quick here because let's bring him in because he finally got his computer fixed and all that stuff. And then when Sean Marion logs in, and calls me, we'll get him on as well. So let's bring in David. So, hey, David, how you doing?
Good. Glad I could get everything figured out here.
Yeah, everybody's having computer issues. Some days I have, because this old house, I have a hiccup sometimes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I've been dealing with it for about a week now, and been really bad the last couple of days, but should get it fixed tomorrow. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about the Gators limping into this rivalry game after losing to Vanderbilt the first time since 1988. in Nashville. So what happened last week? Because it looked like everything was fine the week before, and then they go to what? Did they forget that they had to play a football game?
I guess so. I'd love to say they were looking ahead to Florida State, but I don't think it was that easy. The team was, and we looked toward November. And, after they lost to Georgia, you were looking toward November because it got easier. You were playing Texas A&M, who did not live up to expectations this year. You were playing a South Carolina team, who had a good record, but they weren't blowing anybody away. They weren't super impressive along the way. So you had 6 quarters against those two teams where the defense didn't give up a touchdown. And it looked like this Florida team was turning the corner, only to go to Nashville and just not completely show up. And look, that's nothing to take away from Vanderbilt either. Vanderbilt, they were well coached. They actually showed up. They destroyed Florida up front. Florida's been able to run on pretty much everybody they've played on this year. Besides Georgia, but they did okay. Georgia, just still limited overall with what you were kind of going to do versus Georgia anyway. But Florida's been able to run the ball so well this year with Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, an offensive line they could count on. And that offensive line got beat up front all day long versus Vanderbilt, something we just completely did not see coming. Anthony Richardson wildly threw for 400 yards. His third down performance wasn't all that great. Lived off a couple big plays there that kept Florida in it, but you'd like to see a little more efficiency. You'd like to see him run the ball a bit more. Florida's only won games this year when he's been able to run the ball. So for whatever reason, he didn't get going in the ground game either. Then the defense kind of reverted back to, it wasn't a terrible game by the defense. They still played okay. They played good enough to win the game, but costly third down penalties that extended drives for Vanderbilt, turnovers. If it could go wrong for Florida on Saturday, it went wrong.
Hey, you got a question for David?
Yeah, David, I've talked to so many Gator fans up here in the mountains in North Carolina, Carl. So, I'm still getting over shocked that Florida lost to Vanderbilt in Nashville last Saturday. And now they have to go up against their arch rival Florida State. And Florida State has been so good after their loss against Clemson. So give us some keys on how the Gators can find their way to upset Coach Mike Norvell, Jordan Travis, and the Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah, I'll go to what previous point. Florida's going to have to run the ball, and not only because that's kind of how they've won games this year. Florida's beat up at wide receiver right now. Justin Shorter probably questionable. Xavier Henderson questionable as well. He missed last week versus Vanderbilt. Justin Shorter has missed some time as well, but he did come back last week, but still kind of nursing an injury. Ricky Pearsall, Florida's one of Florida, if not best receiver, went down with an injury as well versus Vanderbilt. So Florida could be without their top 3 wide receivers, having to rely on some young guys. And look, in some ways that might be a blessing in disguise. It might force Billy Napier's hand to, hey, we got to go run the ball. And, we're not going to go and throw it 40 times with Anthony Richardson. We need to go run the ball 50 times to go win this game. And the injuries at wide receiver may force it. So, as I said, maybe a blessing in disguise. But for Florida's defense, Jordan Travis, their lead quarterback there for Florida State, has really played efficient this year. Florida's defense, kind of going to JP's point earlier with kind of how he was talking about USC, Florida's defense has kind of been similar this year. They've given up a whole lot of yards, given up a whole lot of points at times, but they've been able to create turnovers like crazy this year, living off of turnovers. Florida State doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. So you've got to find a way to cause some turnovers for Florida State and Jordan Travis on that end of it as well. And then kind of find some mojo that you found those 6 quarters. The second half versus Texas A&M where they didn't score. The whole game versus South Carolina where they only score on a fake punt. Find that mojo there again. Find some way to stop that FSU run game. I think Jordan Travis is good enough to put the game on his shoulders and win the game. But if FSU gets that ground game going with that 3-headed monster they have, the game's going to be over, and they might even run away with it. So Florida's got to stop the run game for Florida State and force Jordan Travis to beat them. He can do it, but that's the path to a victory.
Yeah, David, I saw him 2 weeks ago up in Syracuse, and Travis ran one in, passed one in, and even decided to catch one in. Yeah, so he had the hat trick, if you want to call it, in quarterbacking, and I feel like what Florida State's doing right now, everything's just clicking after that Clemson game, because I feel like that's if you look at the Clemson game, that's when they were down a couple touchdowns. They tried to come back. Travis threw an interception, and I think that he learned from that game because ever since then they've been putting up 41 points on everybody.
Yeah, they've jumped out the big leads too. I think I was previewing the game on my end, and I think they jumped up to, they were up 21-3 at halftime, up 28-3 at halftime, up 35-3 at halftime. I mean, that's what they've been doing lately. Look, they had that stretch in the middle of the season where they lost 3 games in a row, and you're looking at, can they bounce back when the schedule eases up? Well, they did. We were looking at Florida to do that same thing. Florida got beat by Georgia, but hey, Texas A&M's up, South Carolina's up, Vanderbilt's up, and then you get Florida State. Okay, it was trending that way for Florida. A week ago, we were looking forward to Florida State and kind of just riding off the Vanderbilt game. Both teams looked at November and said, hey, the schedule eases up. That's going to set up for a big showdown the last week of the season. Florida State took advantage of their easier part of the schedule. Florida last week did not.
Thank you for coming on tonight. We got to get Sean Marion on, so I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and hopefully you get all that technology thing worked out, and we'll get you on down the road, okay?
Sounds good. You guys have a good one too.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks, David.
All right, that's David Waters, who does the Gators breakdown, and let's bring in former Maryland Terrapin, who spent some time in San Diego. And Buffalo too, right there, Adam?
Yes, he did. Sean did play and
Sean's on the phone. Sean Marion, who former Terp, on the phone with us. Sean, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing? And happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for having me.
So talk about your this week you got a big coat drive going down there at College Park, on Saturday against before the Rutgers game, and this is your 20th year of doing it. So do you still remember the first one you did?
I do actually. Matter of fact, the first one I did, I thought we would only get 100 coats, and I was going to be extremely happy about it. And the first time out, we got over 2,500. And so, I said, you know what, this is, I think we got something good here. We're going to help out a lot of people. And now 20 years later, over 35,000 coats later, it's still going, man. But I'm just really happy because this time of year, we all know that it gets cold outside and people need our help. They can't help themselves. So just doing something like this and being able to come back home to the University of Maryland, back to PG County and where I grew up, man, it's a really good feeling.
That's cool. Yeah, you're doing this for to help the community out. Talk about your Lights of Colt, Lights On. You started this charity thing years ago, right? So explain to folks what it is.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Prince George's County, Maryland, and we were left homeless due to a fire when I was a kid. So we lived in shelters, lived in the back of the cars with my mom and my sister, and I would just remember not having that coat. During the winter, we had two sweaters and a sweatshirt on, and we had socks on our hands. And I said, you know what? If I ever get in a position one day to make sure that somebody don't feel like this, then I'm going to do something about it. And that's kind of the birth of the Lights On Foundation.
That's cool. Awesome. Adam's a big Bills fan. I know you went to Buffalo at the end of your career, but he's a big Bills guy.
Yeah. Now, Sean, I'm actually going to talk about when you were a member of the San Diego Chargers. So what was it like to play against your rivals, the Oakland Raiders and the Denver Broncos?
For me, growing up in the East Coast, you don't understand how big that rivalry is when you start playing for the Chargers, right? You don't know how big the rivalry is for the Raiders and the Broncos. There's real hate there with the Raiders, and I didn't know that until Marty Schottenheimer kind of instilled that in all of us, that it was a real hate there. So those days were great, man, because we ran a division. We had some of the best players in all of football. We were, breaking records left and right, and it was just a great time.
Yeah, it was a great time, and you guys. And I wish the Chargers stayed in San Diego because they're San Diego, not LA. I'm sorry. I feel like these teams moving to new cities is like, what are you doing? You're ruining the history of that franchise. Just go back to San Diego. Stay.
I'm on both sides, right? Because I did want the team to stay there. I turned 21 years old in San Diego, right? And so I learned how to be a young man, and that's where my heart will always be in San Diego. But just business wise, man, they did so much to try to get a stadium there. So I understand the move. I think the fan base has grown tremendously with the Chargers in LA. And having a star like Justin Herbert, man, he can only get bigger.
Yeah, and the running back too. I was watching him the other night against Kansas City. He's a beast. He's a hoss.
Yeah, all those guys, man. I mean, Eckler is one of the most underrated players in all of football, and I know he got the stats to prove it, but he's just his importance to what he brings to that team and that organization is just underrated. And he can do so many different things, and he's going to do extremely well at football as well.
Yeah, let's talk about your Terps. 6-5. They're trying to get that 7th win, and it seems like they can't get that lucky 7th win. They run into they played well against Ohio State, had them on the ropes like everybody does, and they couldn't knock them out. Week before that, they had a problem with Wisconsin in the rain, and up there in the pouring rain in Wisconsin. So what's your take on your Terps right now?
Well, first of all, you gotta. I think they did a tremendous job in bringing excitement. Mike Locksley coming back to Maryland, bringing the excitement there. The second part of that is you got to win. First of all, win the games you're supposed to win. Right? You got to beat teams like Purdue. You got to beat those teams. You're going to have some problems against the Michigans and Ohio States because those are powerhouse schools, right? Their backup offensive linemen are also 5-star recruits. So you'll have some problems there. But if you can get a win against Michigan, Ohio State, then your whole season has a different outlook. So as this top recruiting class is coming in, I think they're going to make that a focal point in making sure that they bring in the right student athletes to compete with Ohio State and Michigan.
That's true. Yeah, and I think that, and it's taking time now because I feel like Locksley is trying to bring that local talent in because they have a great running back from my neck of the woods, Edgewood, Maryland. He does a great job running that little freshman running back, and I'm like, wow, there's a kid from John Carroll High School who's basically 20 minutes from my house in Bel Air. I'm in Cockeysville now, but I'm like, wow, there's somebody who actually came from that area doing a fantastic job down in College Park.
No, absolutely, and I'll tell anybody this: the DC, Maryland, Virginia area has the best talent in all of in the country. If you combine the DC, Maryland, Virginia area and you keep these guys here, there's nobody that can compete. And I'm talking about Georgia and Florida and Texas and California as well. We have the best athletes here. They just got to stay home. Yeah,
that's true, and that's like every program. You see that I was up in Syracuse a couple of weeks ago, and they're having a hard time keeping their local talent home because everybody wants to go other places. But I understand you being you're a college kid, you want to have that college experience. You want to spend time and yes, you got to get an education. That's what you're there for. But you want to enjoy the college life. So you say, hey, I had opportunities to go to these places, these parties, but I still got an education.
No, absolutely. And education is most important because look, not everyone's like 1 or 2% of people even have an opportunity to even look at the NFL. So education is one, but man, it'd be nice to keep your hometown guys because that's how you really build a program.
Yeah, that's true. So your coach drive starts at 10:30 on Saturday morning and it runs till 2:00. Game time's at 12 noon. And if folks want to drop off coach for you, your coach locations are Gate I, F, and C. They're at it used to be Capital One Field. Now it's just CQ Field now for CQ Stadium. So what can people do with their jackets? Do they buy new jackets, old jackets? Because I got so many jackets, I might just come down on Saturday and just give them to you. Because my mom would be happy with them. We get rid of them.
That would be awesome, and that's what we're looking for because your old jackets or jackets you're not wearing is going to supply to keep somebody warm this winter. And that's what this whole thing is about, right? And I think we all got some space to make room in our closets to help out a lot of people. So I'll be there from the start of it to the end of it. I'll get a chance to go on the field and I'll see some of the other players and former players. But it's really about everybody else who's been making this event and even doing this right now. This is the reason why it's been going on for 20 years because the support of this area, the student athletes, the guys from other sports, right? The wrestling team, the hockey team, the field hockey team come out. I mean, just everybody who's made it special over 20 years. This one is a big one.
Yeah. Well, this is fantastic. You keep up the good work, Sean, and I know you make the state of Maryland proud, and even PG County and the Beltway down there, the Capital Beltway, and hopefully everybody, folks, if you're going to the game on Saturday, and you have old coats or old, you have scarves, hats, anything you want to get rid of it out of your closet, cold weather items, go bring them down to Sean. He'll give them to some less fortunate kids who need them, and this is such a great idea, and I'm glad it's still rolling. And keep up the good work, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Sean. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Yeah,
that's cool what Sean does. I gotta say, I mean, I remember when Sean was a member of the San Diego Chargers and the Buffalo Bills. So for all of you watching, if you're going to the Maryland game on Saturday, like Chris said, bring your worn coats, scarves, hats. I mean, it's for a very, very good cause. So,
yeah, it is a very good cause. Yeah, and folks, we had to get them on because I got an email this afternoon. I was like, this is a good thing for charity for the people who are less fortunate this time of year, with Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, Chris. Absolutely.
People who are like, I know my mom has so many jackets, just some jackets she has in her closet look like from the 70s. I'm like, come on, Mom, get rid of them. Yeah. And a lot of these kids, these kids are less fortunate. Like he said, when he was a kid, he had a house fire, and he didn't have a coat. And I'm like, wow, and that's just crazy, and I feel like he's doing such a good work around the Baltimore, Washington area here, and it's great to have him on. And I had him on last year, talking to him on video. I was like, hey, let's get him on the phone. Maybe we'll help him out a little bit. So let's just tell you folks where you can find it again. Sean Marion's 20th annual. Look at the Lights on Coat Drive scheduled for this Saturday, November 26th at 10:30 a.m. at CQ Stadium, or it used to be called BERCICH Stadium, and then changed to the Capital One Field. Now is CQ Stadium during the Rutgers Maryland game. So if you're looking to get rid of some good stuff, old hats, jackets, everything you need, that'll be great. Let's talk about other stuff in the local here. I know, Adam, there's a lot of local stuff here in my area, some newsworthy stuff, and I know you probably saw this. Let's bring this up here. Looking for something here. Oh, here you go. Monday, the Towson Athletics Department had announced that Rob Ambrose will not return as head coach of the Towson football team next year, ending a 13-year run for Coach Ambrose, who occasionally made an appearance here on the program. We wish we could get him back on shortly, down the road. But we want to say thank you for being such a good friend to our show. And I was doing some comparisons here, Adam. I've been doing this for 16 years.
Wow.
Because he's been at Towson for 13. I saw Gordy Combs as the coach the coach before him 3 years before that. So 16 years on the air.
That's amazing. Yeah. And Chris, starting Saturday, the FCS playoffs get underway, and there are five teams from the CAA that made it into.
We'll try to get someone next week. I want to try to get William and Mary on. They have a bye this week. Coach
Mike London and William and Mary has a good shot to make it down to Frisco, Texas for the national championship game.
Hey, Adam, I want to let you welcome this gentleman in. He's the bowl director. Go ahead.
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's speaking of college football, it's almost time for the bowl games to get underway. So let's bring in the executive bowl director, Nick Carpapelli.
Hey, Adam.
Nick,
Chris, how are
you? We got it almost. Yeah, almost. Yeah.
So let's talk about all these different bowl games out there. And actually, the team from the Mid-American Conference that it's going to go to the Bahamas Bowl that could get in soon. And also, there's a cool bowl taking place at Fenway Park this year, the Fenway Bowl. So tell us about the Fenway Bowl at Fenway Park.
Yeah, so we're excited to actually see a Fenway Bowl for finally. It 2 years ago was supposed to be its inaugural game, and of course the pandemic hit and we lost half the bowl games. And then last year we had a team back out last minute. So long time coming now, but this is going to be the inaugural Fenway Bowl, and it should be exciting.
Yeah. Nick, I got to ask you a question about James Madison University. They're doing really well in their first year, moving from the CAA to the Sun Belt. But they're not qualified for the bowl game, right? So, what is that transition like for a team? Like they have a chance to win the Sun Belt Championship next week against Coastal Carolina, and they can't go bowling. Yeah, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The NCAA rules. Has rules of when a conference transitions from Division II to Division I, and from 1AA to the old 1AA FCS to FBS, and it's a 2-year transition period. It's to allow them to adjust to a number of things. Changing their schedule to have a full complement of FBS opponents, to upgrade facilities, scholarship limits. As you know, the FCS has a 63-man scholarship limit. FBS has 85. So, it's designed to give them a couple years to ramp up. James Madison's a little ahead of schedule, which is great for them, but unfortunately they're not eligible to play in a bowl game until that 2-year period is up.
Yeah, that's fortunate because they're doing a great job down there. And, I saw them a lot in the CAA, and I didn't know they were going to do that well this year, because I thought when they go to a new conference, you always struggle in the first year of their new conference. They just picked up like you're just in the CAA, just with a different name.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job. They should. A lot of excitement around that program for that reason. When the day comes, they go to their first bowl game. It's going to be really exciting. I expect the James Madison fans to come out in droves for that one.
Yeah. Well, you had some bowl games, like the Citrus Bowl had a new sponsor. So I guess the Cheez-It people are just sponsoring everything down in the Orlando area. They got the Cheez-It Bowl, and now they're the sponsor of the Citrus Bowl. So just talk about that partnership with Cheez-It.
Well, Cheez-It loves bowl games, and you need a bowl to serve Cheez-It. So I guess those go hand in hand. Just a great partner for the city of Orlando. Obviously, both of those games that they're the sponsor of are in Orlando, investing heavily in that community and in those bowl games. I think they're realizing what a lot of people realize is that investing in college football as a means for exposure for your brand is a great investment. There are, next to the NFL, college football is easily the second most popular sport amongst sports fans. And bowl season is a time of year where all eyes are on college football and on bowl games. So Selection Sunday's coming up in about a week and a half, and boy, we dominate that day, and everybody's can't wait to find out who's going to what bowl game, and if you're a fan of a specific school, which community you're going to be able to spend a few days visiting. And typically it's a community or a city you've never been to before, so that's always fun.
Yeah, I got to ask you another question. I was listening the other day about Army, and Army their record is technically 5-6 because of the win against, I think, Villanova, as part of the Division II, in the CAA. Why can't go to a bowl game with a game they play against somebody who's not in their in the Power 5? Why does it give you deductions?
Well, it's not about playing a team that's not in the Power 5. It's about playing a team that's at the FCS level and not the FBS level. So you're allowed to play and count one FCS win per year towards your bowl eligibility record. Army's one of the handful of schools this year that played 2 FCS opponents and beat them in both. So while their record is 5-6, when you read it in the paper, it's actually 4-6 when you're considering bowl eligibility, and the best they can be after the Navy game is 5-6.
Okay, all right. Because I was wondering about that, because I was like, wow. Because I thought a win is a win. I thought when you see the W in the win column, I thought it was like but I didn't know they had something like you like you said, you play one SBS team. And if you play 2 of them, that win crossed out the other one. So basically, you were you're 4-6 pretty much.
Yeah, it's yeah, I agree with you. A win's a win, and they beat Navy. They'll say they were 6-6, but obviously, there are schools that could schedule all their non-conference games against FCS opponents and pile up some wins and potentially take a bowl spot away from a team that had a more impressive record, even if the record looks the same. So I think the rules in place for a reason. Army certainly knew the rules going into the season, and that situation is what it is.
Yeah. Talk about with any surprises with these bowl games, because I know we lost a sponsor in the Outback. Now it's the Outback Bowl. Used to be the Hall of Fame game. Now it's what's the name of it now?
It's the ReliaQuest Bowl. So I think they were fortunate. They're such a great game. They've been a part of that Tampa community for a long time. So when Outback dropped out, ReliaQuest, who's a local company based in Tampa, really jumped on the opportunity to expose their brand in a unique way, but also support this great sports tradition in their home city. So it was really a great match that came together very quickly.
That's cool. Adam, you got a question for Nick?
Now, two teams that are going to be going bowling this year are Liberty and UConn. So talk to us about these independents. You have Liberty, UConn, BYU, Notre Dame. Tell us about where do you think Liberty and UConn are going to go?
Yeah, there's a number of possibilities for them. They'll end up in an ESPN events game, and what that is of over 43 games, 17 of them ESPN actually owns and operates. In addition to televising, they televise the majority of the others as well. But 17 they own and operate, so they have kind of a secondary agreement with ESPN that they'll be in one of those games. So there's a lot of options of places they can go, which is a good thing. The downside potentially is they're not part of a conference, and the bowl system is not set up to accommodate independent institution. These agreements are with conferences. So, there's a potential that they could be left out if we have too many bowl eligible teams. But as we sit here today, a week out from the last regular season weekend, or less than a week out, I'm pretty confident that there'll be spots for both of those teams.
Yeah. Have you traveled to any games this year? Have you been out of the office seeing any good college games? Have you been in any places?
Yeah, I try to. I was, Navy's right down the road from where I live here in Maryland. So, I've seen them. I was out at UCLA last week. I saw Arizona upset UCLA. I was at that game just prior to the big UCLA USC game. So I try to get out, but December is such a heavy travel month for me that I try to save myself for that month. I get to as many bowl games as I can. I went to 8 of them last year. People always ask me how many bowl games I've been to in my life. I probably should, count them up one of these days. I know I've been to well over 100. I think I estimated 30 different bowl games I've been to. So there's a dozen I've never been to. So I probably should check those off my list one of these days.
Yeah, go check. We got that one done. Check that one, and then go.
Yeah, it's like the old days when you had the, families had those RVs and they had the map on the back with every state that you've been to. I need to do that for bowl games.
Exactly. Before I let you go, is there any new bowl games in the horizon? Anything going on in any new cities, new places? Because it seems like now, since I was a kid, we got so many bowl games. It seems like we got enough people to play these bowl games. Are any more cities going to be like, hey, can we join?
Well, I think the good news about bowl games is they're so popular that there are certainly cities that reach out to me and they want to start a bowl game. Until recently, there was room for more bowl games. There were some bowl eligible teams that didn't have spots on an annual basis, but we are pretty much at the limit now. As I said, we have 73 bowl eligible teams today. 17 are one win away. 4 of those teams play each other. So 2 of them are going to get in. So we effectively have 75 for sure, with 13 for the last 7 spots. So you do the math. If those 13 schools, they're basically 500 programs, right? If half win, half lose, that's 6.5 in. Add that to 75, we're at 81.5. We're a half a team short. So we're going to be kind of right at the number this year. I don't see us having room for more bowl games in the future. But if we did, we'd love to have them. There's no such thing as too many bowl games.
Yeah, it's good revenue for the cities, and it gives these kids an opportunity to have fun during their school break, because a lot of them are on winter break and they get a chance to relax. And like down in Atlanta with the Peach Bowl, they have game nights and they have all these. It's a cool atmosphere.
Absolutely, yep. Everybody has fun there for sure.
That's true. Well, let me let you go because I know you have your son in town. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, and I want to wish you and your son and everybody in your family a happy Thanksgiving, and maybe we run into it. Maybe I run into it in a bowl game. I don't know.
I hope so. Thanks for having me on, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you. Don't eat too much turkey now.
All right. I won't. Pass out after this.
I don't believe you.
Okay. All right, sir. Have a good one.
Thanks, Nick.
See you. All right. That's Nick Capillari, the executive director of the bowl season. Bowl game is the wonderful time of the year. That's what they say on ESPN. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Yeah.
Yes. December 17th all the way to January 9th. So if you have a girlfriend who does not like sports, you may want to have her go watch a different TV show.
Yeah. That is true. It's like
and I got number one in this household for that comment.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's bring in our favorite tight end. We're trying to get Pete from the folks from Minnesota. Pete Breckenridge, who's a broadcaster from the Vikings, but I guess with the weather and all that stuff going on, he will probably join us later, or we'll get him on another time. But we got to bring in our favorite tight end, Virginia Tech University. We got to talk about Virginia Tech because last weekend they lost to Liberty, and that's their final game of the year. Because this weekend, I think Mike's going to have a barbecue on Saturday.
Yeah. I think Mike's going to be barbecuing.
Well, they have somebody cut his grass, probably. Maybe do the housework. So, Mike Burnett with us. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Chris and Adam. Happy Thanksgiving there, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving. How many people are coming over to your house? You got a whole 60 people coming over, or what's the deal?
No, actually, I'm going to my daughter's. So, this year.
Okay.
That's awesome. You don't have to worry about cooking or anything. You just drive yourself over there and you go, can I get a plate home? Thank you.
That's right. No cook, no clean up. It's kind of like eat what you want, drive home, and go to bed.
Yeah. Well, you're down there in Blacksburg, Charlottesville area. How's life down there after that terrible situation 2 Sundays ago?
It's awful. I mean, when you think about what those guys went through and the tragedy, it's just unthinkable how that could happen in this day and time. And, some of your teammates go get shot. Just you can't. It's just amazing that can happen. And I feel so bad for the community and those parents that left those kids thinking, everything's going to be great. You're going to have an unbelievable career. Their life was just beginning. To most of those kids, some of them had aspirations. Some of them were good enough to play at the next level. And their life got cut really, really short. And just makes you realize and understand how precious life is and how things can change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about that. I'm coming from my neck of the woods, and when I heard about it, I'm like, what happened? I'm like, oh my God, really? And I know about Charlottesville because my parents have a house in Harrisonburg, Virginia, so that's only like 40 minutes down the road. And I'm like, wow, that could have been Harrisonburg, Virginia. That could have been Blacksburg had the same situation years ago. It's like what is going on with this world with these people? I know these kids are. Is it mental health? It's just people just. I'm not trying to make a political statement tonight, but it just seems like we all need to love each other and say it's okay.
Yeah, it's just different out there. There's no doubt about it. And who knows what prompted this whole thing? I mean, obviously he was on the team before, and he took it out on the players that are on the team now. So you just don't know. And it didn't surprise me one bit. There was no right or wrong decision in terms of canceling the game, because you just think about what's happened. How they haven't been able to practice. They got funerals to go to. Just the whole thing just would mentally drain you, much less physically if you don't practice. It's just not a safe situation to try to play, December the 3rd, which is originally what they thought they would do. So you can understand them canceling it. And, you feel bad for your seniors because they didn't have a senior day. and whatnot. But, it's bigger than football. And, it's one of those things you just can't imagine, and what those parents in particular are going through right now, and the rest of those teammates.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of. I was at Towson University over the weekend, and they were talking about it, and they had a moment of silence. It's great to see this whole country in different sports like basketball and college basketball. You guys taking a break for saying pausing and all that stuff for Virginia Tech games, and Virginia Tech bringing out the Cavalier flag the other day down in Lynchburg, and I know you guys are hated rivals, but when something happens to your rival, you become friends and you help each other out.
Well, that's it. And they were a big help to Virginia Tech when they had the massacre here. And I think the Hokies just felt bad for them, especially the football guys. I mean, so many of those guys know each other from recruiting, from high schools. And you just, you lost a friend. I mean, when it's all said and done, everybody's playing the game that they love. And football is just that bond that keeps you all together. And whether or not you're a rival one day of the year, the other times of the year, you just think about your brethren and your other people. And so it's just sad to think that those guys are gone in the prime of their life, and they just changed so fast. Never did they thought that they would get back from a field trip and have that happen.
Yeah. So last week they win against Liberty, I guess the final game of the year, 4-7. So what is your analysis of the first year with the new coach? It seems like every year with a new coach, first year is always bumps in the road. Everybody wants him to be this person, and he's not Frank Beamer. He's his own guy, and I feel like a lot of people have expectation in this program, going, "Oh, you better be at a bowl game, or else you're going to be out of a job in 2 years."
Well, first of all, you were generous to give them that fourth win, which they didn't get. They were 3-8.
Okay, because I was went on the college press box and they put win over Liberty 23-22, and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought they lost. It's like I guess someone didn't pay attention to that one.
So yeah, I mean, it was a difficult year. I mean, anytime you have change and a new staff coming in, sometimes it takes longer than you think. But the crazy thing about this year is that when you think about it, they had the lead going into the fourth quarter in the two games that they lost by one. NC State on the road, a ranked team, Georgia Tech, another team that had a lead at home in the fourth quarter, two games that you probably should have won. And you think about Old Dominion, you lose that game, got the lead in the fourth quarter, can't hang on, you lose by 3. And so, right there, you got 6 wins that would have made you bowl eligible already. And then you think about there's several other games that you were within a score in the fourth quarter and couldn't close it out. And so I think that was what was so kind of cool or neat about this game here this past Saturday against Liberty. And now looking back at it, it was their last game, was that, Liberty was a big favorite in that game. They were 8-2 and the Hokies were 2-8. They were 10-point favorites, sold out crowd. It was like a Super Bowl atmosphere for them. They were lit up and riled up. The students are right on top of the bench at Virginia Tech's sideline. And for the fact that they were able to close the game out, they had a 10-point lead in the first half. They were up 17-7. They score, and what happens? They give up a 97-yard kickoff return. And you're thinking, here we go again. And then they give up, a field goal right before the half, the last possession right before the half. They give a field goal. So it's a tie game at the half. And then, you give up a safety, and, all that stuff was happening around it. But yet somehow they found a way to win the game, and they did it by creating turnovers. 2 out of the last 3 possessions, Liberty had the ball. The Hokies forced fumbles and recovered the fumbles, and that was the difference in the game. So, it's so fitting to win by 1 after you lost by 1 for 2 different teams, and to get that, making it your last game. And, you had to feel good for a couple of the seniors in particular, like Jalen Holston, our running back. They had a career high in carries, a career high in rushing yards, a career high in touchdowns in that game. And Tywan Garbett, another guy, played his last game for Virginia Tech. Monster game. He had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. He forced a fumble. I mean, he was all over the field, just quarterback hurries. And so, you feel good for those guys, being that's their last game. So it was a good one to win in spite of everything that was going on. And so now you go to the offseason maybe with some momentum.
Yeah. Well, now you're going to turn the page and do basketball. Yeah, you were down in Charleston, South Carolina for the Charleston Classic. So it was a good weekend for the Hokies. I know they made it to the title game and lost to College of Charleston, but it's still it was a good weekend down there.
It was, they beat Old Dominion first round, came back and beat a good Penn State team that's got a terrific couple of players on there, some big guys, and then to play the College of Charleston. The weird thing about that, guys, was that was a home game for them. They played that game at TD Arena. That's their home court. Their band was there. Their cheerleaders were there. Their dance team was there. I mean, it was a raucous atmosphere. And they're a good team. They got about 10 guys that can play. And that's kind of their MO. They come at you in waves. Their bench was outstanding. I think they outscored the Hokies like 40-5. And just, but then the game, the Hokies had to lead late. Charleston ended up tying the game, and then they made the last play of the game. They had the ball last, and they made the play with 3 seconds left, and Hokies threw up a shot that was almost half court, didn't go in. Had it had gone in, it would have won the game. So they lost by 2, which is, it's not that bad when you consider how good the College of Charleston was.
Exactly. Adam, you had a question for Mike?
Sticking with basketball, Mike, can Virginia Tech compete with North Carolina and Duke and Virginia this year? I mean, all those good teams, Virginia has been solid. North Carolina's number 1 in the country. Duke has a new head coach. So can the Hokies contend for an ACC championship?
Well, that's the hope, right? And we're going to find out pretty quick here soon because, they're playing at the University of North Carolina here December the 4th. So You're going to learn a lot about this team then, how good they are. And that's a home game, so that's good. It's a good problem to have. They're also going on the road here soon to play Oklahoma State and the Barclays up in New York. And they have Dayton coming here. The Hokies went to Dayton last year and got waxed pretty good. Mm-hmm. So we've got some tough games coming up. Minnesota's in the Big Ten Challenge. That game is Monday night here. So you'll know a little bit about them as well. And, they got to get some more production off the bench. They need to get Rodney Rice. The point guard is very talented. They need to get him healthy. And Grant Basile, he's a terrific player that transferred in from Wright State. He's got great offensive skills, but he needs to be better on the defensive end. And I think that's what concerns Mike Young right now. He didn't worry about scoring enough points to win. He's concerned about rebounding and defense. That's his main thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about that game on Friday night against Charleston Southern. A home game after Thanksgiving. Everybody should be well fed and ready to go. And they shouldn't have no concession stands open. They just have a sign saying, "You had your dinner yesterday. We're not spending any money." But just talk about that game coming up because it's almost like you guys played Sunday. You don't play until Friday, so it's almost like a mini bye.
Well, a little bit, but you got to remember that they played 3 games in 4 days, and
right.
They had to travel too. So it is a little break, but it's a nice break. And they'll get another break of about 9 days when they play right before Christmas at Boston College on the 21st. And then they don't play again until New Year's Eve, the 31st, at Wake Forest, a couple of road league games. So that'll be a nice little break as well. But yeah, it's going to be it's an 8:00 game on Friday night. Hopefully there'll be a decent crowd. It's supposed to be a game before they played UVA in football, so you knew it was going to be pretty packed and probably sold out had they had the football game. But now, I'm sure a lot of people probably won't come. But it's one of those things, and the Hokies will just try to regroup and get back on the winning track, and that's what they've kind of done at Castle so far.
Yeah. Talk about your new broadcaster. How was it working with him this year? For football, you guys, your old buddy, your old friend, came back to help you with football, but you have a new guy for basketball, right?
Yeah, it was great to have Bill Roth back for the football season, and he lives in Fort Lauderdale, and he's still professor at Virginia Tech, so they're on break this week, so he's back in Lauderdale. And so they hired a guy, Zach Mackey, who came to us to do basketball and be the director of broadcast operations, handle all the travel, the formats, all that minutia that Bill really couldn't do because he's a professor. Mm-hmm. And so Zach's been great. Looking forward to working with him the rest of the season. We travel together, all obviously back and forth from Charleston and Lynchburg. That was a haul of a week now, I'm telling you. You know, I had to do the radio show last Wednesday night. That was from 7 to 8. Ended up getting out of there probably at 8:45 to drive to Charleston. Got there about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
No valet parking. So I had to go find a parking spot in this massive parking lot where all these teams were staying at the Charleston Marriott. And, you know, get up and shoot around was at like 7 a.m. because they played at noon. And so, yeah, there wasn't much sleep there. And then Friday, right after the game Friday, we went back to the hotel, changed clothes, and drove to Lynchburg. Got checked in there. And right after the game at Liberty, we got back in the car and drove right to Charleston. So,
Jesus.
No, that was a haul.
Yeah.
I believe, Mike.
Yeah, I took a trip to Syracuse a couple weeks ago to see Florida State and Syracuse, and the ride was fine. It was good. You know, we got out of there before the blizzard showed up. You know, so it was good for me to get out of town. But it's just fascinating how when you go up north, it's like you see it's nothing but farm country, and then you know you see like the hills and valleys, and you're like, this is nice and peaceful. You know, and not bad. You know, and then you get to Syracuse and you're looking at it around going, are we in Harrisonburg, Virginia? You know, it looks kind of like, or PA or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's not bad. But I was not impressed about the dome. I thought the dome to me was this great thing. You know, as a kid watching it, like, wow, it's the Carrier Dome. This is a great thing. It looked like a hockey arena. They just put a roof over it. You know, it's
a different place. Yeah, it's a totally different perspective in there, football to basketball, and the way they lay the court out and all that. And they have some massive crowds in there for the bigger games, you know, the Carolinas, the Dukes, and whatnot. But, yeah, it is. It's tough for the players just because of the perspective, looking at the basket and the room behind the baskets and all the crowd. It's a different place, to say the least.
Exactly. Well, Mike, thanks so much for coming on tonight. And you've been a good friend of this program, and I appreciate you coming on. And hope you have a great weekend, with Thanksgiving on Thursday. Don't eat too much. I know that Cowboys game will probably put everybody to sleep.
Yeah, there'll be some good football watching this weekend, some great games. We're really looking forward to seeing South Carolina and Shane Beamer take on Clemson.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Shane needs to knock him off.
That should be a heck of a game. I hated it. Hendon Hooker got hurt.
Yeah, same here, Mike.
Yeah, he had a great season. And I'll say this last thing, too, that because the guys didn't have their senior day for football, they're going to honor them at the North Carolina basketball game on that Sunday. That game is sold out, and so they will get the senior day, whatever they're going to do in terms of festivities before the game against Carolina. Nice. So that'll be nice.
That's awesome. That's great. They got to do something for them. It's not their fault that things got canceled, and
sure,
they need to get a good send off, and everybody there will be happy to see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, Mike, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you down the road. And if I don't talk to you before Christmas, have a great holiday season. Okay.
Same to you guys. Thanks for having me on. Sorry about last week with no internet, and I appreciate it.
It's okay. We sometimes I have a hiccup here sometimes, and I'm sitting there going, all right, hope Adam knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Adam's in charge.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
All right, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
See you. Bye. That's a good friend of ours, Mike Burnup from Virginia Tech football and radio, and he does also basketball as well. So he's a busy man.
Oh, of course, Chris. Oh, yeah.
And when I was talking to him, we talked to him years, a couple months ago. He was a better basketball player than a football player.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then why did you play tight end?
I don't know.
Yeah. Folks, thanks for joining us here. We're going to get close to the top of the hour. We're going to say hello to our good friends in Indianapolis Soccer. They have their season ticket drive going on. If you want to get some season tickets for your son or your daughter or whoever wants in your family is a big soccer net, because I know the World Cup's going on right now, and they had an upset today. They had Argentina losing to Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big upset there. That's like let's use college football terms. That's like Troy University beating Georgia.
Yeah. Or Coastal Carolina going down to Athens and upsetting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I heard that. I was like, wow. And then.
Yeah. Folks, if you want to email the show, if you want to send anything to us, that's the email to the show, herbertonradio@gmail.com. We'll be back next Tuesday night. We'll get you ready for championship weekend. We got some big games coming on next week. We got North Carolina and Clemson going on. Then we'll see who's going to go out to Indianapolis, where somebody named the Colts are there. I got another number one.
Yeah.
I was wondering something. Would I get in serious trouble if I go to the Big Ten championship game and go to a gift shop and buy Charlie a birthday gift with a Indianapolis Colts T-shirt on it? Would I get killed?
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
I'm sorry. I know.
I love it, Adam. You're not taking my side. You go, yeah, you're dead. You're done.
I mean, I know who the other person you're talking about, and that is Miss Nicole.
Yes, sir. Speaking of that, we want to wish your father a happy birthday. His birthday is this week, and also there's somebody on this program has a birthday.
Thanksgiving. Me,
So
I'll be 40. I will be 41 years old on Thanksgiving Day.
Birthday, buddy. Good
Thank
stuff.
you. I appreciate that, Chris. It's like an early birthday present for me. Having everyone on the show tonight. It's called. Actually, I haven't worked this week at my job at the grocery store. Taking some time off. To spend with my family and not dealing with all the craziness at the grocery store. I did that, but now.
So Adam, happy birthday to Adam. So if you want to send him a email or a Twitter, is what they can go to your Twitter page.
Yeah,
right?
All Sports Fan 24 is my Twitter, and if you want, I'm at Adam Limerese on Instagram. So it's called. If you want, you can send me birthday wishes, and I will be checking all day Thursday, and also happy birthday to Nicole's father, Charlie.
Yes, Charlie's birthday is on Friday, and he's a freaking viewer of this broadcast. So hopefully he's tuning in tonight, or I'll send this to him as a birthday gift for him. He's probably gonna go, "Oh God, I'm all over the internet." But he's gonna be the big 7-0.
Wow,
big 7-0. Yeah, a lot of people I know is getting in the 70s now. Yeah, my parents, Charlie. 70s that new 40. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. That's what I heard. The new 40. Speaking of rivalries, this week and we got this big game coming up on Saturday. I know it's not the biggest game, but the Iron Bowl back on this date in 2003 was played, and Auburn played against a team against Alabama, and Alabama had a losing record.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. Well, let me see if I can find it here. I don't know if I put it in the on the video screen here. Hold on a second. Let me see if I have it. Yeah, they had a losing record. Interesting, huh? Yeah, I think that's the last. I think that's before Nick Saban showed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why right now everybody's having a heart attack. They lost 2 games in a row. Yeah. So I think that's the other one. But we'll figure it out. I'll find it. But on this date in 2003, the Iron Bowl, Auburn beat Alabama 28-23, and got. I think it helped Auburn get into the bowl games, and Alabama had a losing record in that year. So that's interesting. What else is going on here? Let's see here. We're waiting for. We'll have James Coleman joining us at 9:05. We're just going to try to talk about other things going on.
Notre Dame USC this weekend.
Notre Dame USC.
Out in SoCal. Notre Dame is coming off a win against Boston College, and USC played a shootout against UCLA and came out on top. So, like JP said, USC is in control of their own destiny. As if they win out, I don't see why they can't, contend for a national championship and play in the semifinals. I mean, they got a team that could. I mean, I think they could go up against a team like Georgia or maybe Ohio State or Michigan, so we can't forget TCU, Chris. TCU is still undefeated, so they're going to the Big 12 championship game, and who knows what happened if TCU were to lose in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, if they lose in the Big 12 championship game, it's kind of their season's done. Forgot there's another football game we were just mentioning tonight, as I said, with Mike Burnham. Cowboys and Giants, at 4:30. On Thursday. So last time they played each other was back in when some guy named Emmitt Smith ran all over the Giants back in '92. Let me bring it up here. I have a video of that. There it is. Hopefully this is the right video. So it's 8:55 here on a Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Heidel, and that's Adam Remize, the birthday boy, who. So having your birthday on Thanksgiving, is it really hard that you have to, you get a birthday dinner, turkey stuffing, and everything else, but you get gifts as well, right?
Yes, I do actually. When I was born the day before Thanksgiving, so November 24th is my birthday, so it has fallen on Thanksgiving in the past, and this year it just happens to fall on Thanksgiving, so I'll have turkey, cake, and all the rest of the stuff, and I'll just watch football, and then on Friday I'll just rest before I go back to work on Monday.
Yeah, that's true. And relax and have a good weekend there. So were you born in the evening or in the morning?
I believe I was born in the morning.
Really?
I was November 24th, 1981. At Malden General Hospital in Malden, Massachusetts. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a New England baby. So I understand when Steve Tasker was on earlier about all the snow. 13 years I went to all the craziness in New Hampshire before moving down here to North Carolina in 1997. Now lived here for 25 years and I can't complain.
No. And down in North Carolina, when they get snow, it's like they're like, oh God!
Yep, that is correct, Chris. It's called when it snows here, people panic. And the funny thing is, when they even just hear snow, they'll cancel school. And I had to learn that the hard way moving from New Hampshire because I went to school in snow. Yeah. So it was a big transition for me.
Well, it was funny. With when I came back, I lived up in New York, and I moved down here to Maryland, and I was so used to, New York, because up there in Long Island, we had snow and they canceled schools and all that stuff. That's okay. But down here in Maryland, they had a flake and they closed schools. So when I was a kid, I was like, every time we get a snowstorm, we get one flake, I hear Harford County Public Schools closed today. And
same thing for me. It's called when I saw on the bottom of my screen, Haywood County Schools closed. I was like, what? Okay. And then everyone goes and gets, people panic. They go to the grocery store and get their eggs and the bread and the milk. And it's like, it's crazy. I mean, but it is what it is.
Well, let's talk about rivalries. We have Georgia Tech and Georgia playing each other this weekend. That's like a no contest because Georgia is such a powerhouse these days. It's been a long time since Georgia Tech beat Georgia, but it could happen. Yeah, you never know. Any given Saturday, somebody could beat somebody.
True. That's very true.
Yeah, so that game's at 12 noon on Saturday. Also, the South Carolina Gamecocks taking on, like we just had Mike Burnham on. Let's bring that up. Georgia Tech and Georgia, and then you have also on that day we were just talking about South Carolina, who basically put up 63 points on Tennessee. That basically knocked Tennessee out of the top 25 and the top 5 of the college football playoff because that was And the funny thing is, Clemson, South Carolina can still help Clemson get into the college football playoff.
That's right. That's crazy. I mean, it's like, Chris, I didn't think South Carolina would do that to Tennessee. I mean, Spencer Rattler coming over from Oklahoma, new coach, new system he had to learn, and he did that to Tennessee. I still can't believe it. I mean, it blew me away. I mean, it was like in college NFC as part in the college football playoff, and they lost Hendon Hooker, but South Carolina Clemson is a huge rivalry in the Palmetto State of South Carolina. That's the state divided.
Well, let me finish that video we played earlier about Thanksgiving. So let me put this on because I have to take care of something. So let's just replay this video you guys missed earlier this evening.
They had to turn people away at the gates. 10-1 Detroit hosted the 11-0 Chicago Bears in a matchup that to this day featured the most combined wins by two teams heading into a Thanksgiving Day game. The Bears would win 19-16 and stay undefeated. The Lions have played on the holiday every year since 1934, minus a stretch from 1939 to 1944. No Thanksgiving Day games were held from 41 to 44 due to World War II observance. Skip ahead to 1951, where the Lions and Packers produced the highest scoring game on Thanksgiving Day history with 87 combined points. Did you know the very first televised Thanksgiving game was broadcast by the now defunct Dumont's television network in 1953? CBS would take over the broadcast in 1956. But now, let's jump ahead to 1962.
Coaching the Packers has been an unequal thrill for Vince Lombardi, who has at his disposal perhaps the greatest football team ever assembled.
The Lions once again hosted the Packers. Vince Lombardi led Green Bay to an NFL title in 1961, and his 62 squad came into the game at 10-0. What happened next would be coined the Thanksgiving Day Massacre. Detroit's defense shut down Hall of Famers Bart Starr, Paul Hornung, and Jim Taylor. A national TV audience watched the Lions dominate the world champs in convincing fashion. Green Bay would score a couple of late touchdowns, but ultimately suffer their only loss of the season.
What the hell's going on out here?
All right, here's a fun fact for you. After Chicago plays Detroit in 2019, the Bears and Packers franchises will have each played 36 Thanksgiving Day games. That's tied for the most all-time by any team other than the Lions and Cowboys, of course. Speaking of America's team, fast forward with me to 1966. Dallas GM Tex Schramm saw an opportunity to get the Cowboys in the national spotlight by playing on Turkey Day. Sure, the Lions had filled their stadium, but there was no guarantee that Dallas could do the same. Schramm signed the Cowboys up anyway, and fans showed up in droves. The team broke its attendance record as 80,259 people crammed into the Cotton Bowl. The Cowboys defeated the Browns 26-14, and a second Thanksgiving tradition was born.
Back to pass, throws deep. The ball high in the air, racing for it. Touchdown!
He is arguably the biggest one-game wonder in NFL history. On Thanksgiving 1974, unknown backup quarterback Clint Longley replaced the injured Roger Staubach against the Redskins. Down 16-3 in the third quarter, Clint Longley rallied Dallas to an improbable 24-23 victory in his first game ever. Have a day, Clint Longley.
He's going long. Down the near sideline, Pearson makes the catch at the 5. Touchdown! Pearson goes in for the touchdown!
Since 1966, the Cowboys have missed hosting Thanksgiving games only twice. That's because in 1975 and 1977, the NFL chose the St. Louis Cardinals as its second host. That did not go so well. They were defeated 32-14 by Buffalo in 75, and in 76 they faced the Cowboys in Dallas, losing 19-14. Then as the host again in 77, the Cardinals allowed 6 touchdown passes to Dolphins quarterback Bob Greasy in a 55-14 loss.
He's in the open. He's got it. Touchdown, Dolphins.
Greasy's 6 scores are matched only by Peyton Manning, who tied the Thanksgiving record in 2004. And while all that was happening in the mid-70s, O.J. Simpson broke the NFL single-game rushing record against the Lions in 1976.
O.J. running to the left, turns the corner at the 30. O.J. at the 25, the 20, and falls ahead of the 15. That does it. He broke the record.
From 1970 to 2005, 3 NFC teams and 1 AFC team played every Thanksgiving. Detroit has always played the early game, followed by Dallas in the late afternoon. The Lions get the early game because the 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff would be 11:30 a.m. in Dallas, And really, who wants to kick off before noon on a holiday? I'm not even awake yet. The first game starts at a special time of 12:30 rather than the typical 1 p.m. start. It allows an extra 30 minutes to prevent overlap into the late game in case of overtime. And oh, by the way, the first ever overtime game on Thanksgiving, it lasted just 13 seconds.
Williams breaks out of the pack. Dave Williams to the 30. Touchdown, Chicago. They win it on the kickoff after overtime.
Surprisingly, there have only been 5 overtime games to date on Thanksgiving. You might remember this one.
We'll have a toss to determine who receives. Who will call it from Pittsburgh? Number 36, heads, tails, tails, heads. Call it plays in the air. Heads is the call. He said heads. It is a tails.
Oh, I believe he said tails. He did.
Take the ball.
Look at Jerome.
Adam, that was such a fantastic little video there about Thanksgiving. That's pretty interesting that Luke Longley, who basically, and a year later, he started to fight with Roger Staubach and started to beat the living pants out of him. And he went.
I remember that controversial coin toss between the Steelers and Lions. Jerome Bettis.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was.
Well, let's bring in our good friend from the Florida State Seminoles, James Coleman, who good old running back there. Hey, James, how you doing? Happy Thanksgiving, bud.
Same to you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, how are you doing? Everything good?
Hey, minus the BS, my life's great, man. Just trying to get ready for a good game and spend some time with family.
That's awesome. Let's talk about this big rivalry between Florida State and Florida. You know, we were playing some clips earlier, Adam and I. You know, we're big Florida State fans as well. So, do you have any fond memories of those games? And I know one of them was a big fight, right? And then, yeah.
That'd be my favorite one. 2003. We came back, launched a big comeback, big 4th and 14 play. Chris Ricks to Dominic Robinson. And then the next play, it was first down, and then Chris, I guess, sees PK on the post, beat Gus Scott, who's actually a local Jacksonville guy where I live at now, coaches, beats him, and he throws the ball to the back of the end zone. PK catches it, almost gets bit by a dog back there when the crowd goes wild in the swamp. I tell people I played that game. I broke my hand.
Okay.
The game before against North Carolina State. That was my right hand, so I'm right hand dominant. I also knew that season I was going to have surgery on my right shoulder because I tore my labrum. So we knew halfway during the season with that. And I want to say the second or third play of that Florida game, one of their linemen stepped on my left hand. So that left hand, that glove got shredded, and my hand swelled up twice the size it was. So I was already wearing I wore a size 2X glove. So I was already wearing like a 4X glove because we wouldn't I couldn't catch or run the ball with the glove, with the mitten on. So I practiced with the mitten, but once you get your stuff going, the pain tolerance kind of goes away. You don't really feel it until quite some time after the game. So they padded up my hand really, really good. And there's a picture I have and I scooted all the way up, the glove all the way up, rolled it over, and then they ended up having to use that other glove because that's the only thing that would fit on this hand. And it's kind of hard to block people without hands in a shoulder, but it was a great game. I was tired. I played every snap, every offensive snap that game as well, and it ended with a fight, which all good rivalries should have those moments. We were like I tell people, like Deion Sanders had this thing against Alabama State, I think, where he walked on their sideline, and a lot of people were just like, "Oh, he does that every game." And I don't mind disrespect as long as you don't lie,
right?
And you can back it up. And because Deion paved the way for guys like me, we were blatantly disrespectful. We won, and we went and jumped on the middle of the field, and let them know we won. And we did that for years and decades under Bobby Bowden, but I'm not even going to pretend like we didn't antagonize them. And I respect them a little bit for trying to fight. They lost 2 games they lost twice that day. They lost the football game and the fight, but I respect them for even trying because, again, the rivalry is can be civil, but when it's on a field, I tell people be great citizens off the football field. On the football field, be a borderline terrorist. So, again, maybe if kids are listening, probably don't want me to come speak to your child at school at career day. But
no career day for either, James.
It's the only way I know how to play. It's the only way I know how to play this game. I believe that's the way God intended it. But be a great citizen off the football field. Be somebody that people want to model off the football field. Be a terrorist, or be somebody that people are afraid of on the football field.
I remember as a kid growing up watching Florida State, Florida, and I remember, you talk about 2003. I remember there was a fight. The Gator guy comes onto our logo and starts stomping on it, and he got kicked out of the game because of fighting, and that was Florida's best free safety, and I think that kind of hurt them during that whole game because their free safety got kicked out for a fight before the game, because they were and I'm like. That's just Florida State and Florida. That's what the state of Florida is. You got Miami and Florida State. They don't like each other. This is old fashioned hate. That's what I call it in my head all day today. Old fashioned hate.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's fascinating when I was looking at all the because I'm such a guy looking at history and all that stuff. Then the state of the University of Florida didn't want Florida State to play football against them. And the governor had to say, hey, you're playing against them. I don't care who you're doing it. You're playing against them.
Yeah, it's a law. It's all in legislation, and we have to play each other. So
you don't see that in any state. You don't see that in the state of Maryland. You don't see Coppin State going, I have to play Maryland today. And then you don't see that. It's like they play them once in a while, but it's like down there in Florida, it's the law. That you have to play.
Well, when you look at what Florida doesn't play Miami every year. Right. We look for rivalries. We try to build traditions. We try to build things. And it's a culture. It's why Florida State has stood the test of time. Is why Florida State was able to come in and break the good old boy network that college football was. If you go and you look at what the top 25 is, as a historian, you say go look at the top 25, and you go look at the top 25 the last 50, 60 years. You're going to see Michigan. You're going to see Alabama. You're going to see Ohio State. You're going to see, Mississippi State are going there every now and then. But you're going to see relatively the same 25 teams. But around 1980 is when Florida State, if Florida wasn't even in those teams during that time, but around 1980, Florida State and Miami both came and said, we got something to say. And they said it in Florida State, I can speak to, we did it by having a mindset of anytime, any place, anywhere, anybody. And it's the player that Bobby Bowden recruited and the player that Bobby Bowden molded. I tell people when you look at the rivalry, look at it like this. If you've ever watched the Fab Five ESPN 30 for 30 documentary and hear those guys talk about how they dislike Duke and why they dislike Duke.
Yeah.
See, the kind of now I'm educated, I make a little bit of money. I am the 17-year-old James Coleman would probably rob the James. We'll try. He'd probably get shot. But at the same point, I was a little bit more rambunctious, rough around the edges, things like that. The type of guy that was probably more likely to be what your stereotypes are. But what made Bobby Bowden a saint isn't his political beliefs. It isn't what he does in the church. Honestly, the best Christians to me are Muslims. And some of the best people who've ever treated me are atheists. But what I'll say about Bobby and why I will always love this man and why I will always talk about him as the saint and angel that he is that while everybody else was looking for a specific type of African-American player, one that both parents, one that was considered upstanding, dressed the part, could really blend in with cultures. Bobby Bowden wanted the guys who went for the guys who had nothing to lose. He went for the guys that this education is going to truly transform his family. And that's not to say that Florida didn't have that. But I'm just telling you, if you go in, and he didn't just do that with black players. He did that with his white players. You saw some rednecks. You saw some guys. Bobby used to say, if they got money, I don't want them. But it was you went in and you got those guys that you knew that when you give them this college education, you give them this opportunity to change their life, they're going to come out here not only make you proud, but it's going to change the entire trajectory of everybody else. So, like, we like to fight. We like to be bullies. And when you take that mindset, that's the only way you could do it. So we went out and we tried. He raised a generation of bullies and showed us, hey, you can be a bully. And then this is how you, if you take this bullying mindset, we clean it up, corporate it a little bit, you can take that and be successful in any aspect of the world. And that's why I always tell people, everybody listen to that aw shucks and, you know, those good stories. Man, Bobby was a goon. There's no way you can have those guys follow somebody who's a pushover and just the, you know, like the Jesus with the lamb over his shoulder. Nah, man, Bobby could get down. Think about Mickey Andrews, all these guys. Men followed this guy who other people feared. So what does that mean about the guy that y'all think is just all shucks? Yeah. So it's just awesome. So I loved it. You know, I love the way the rivalry goes now. I know a couple Florida guys. Some of them are cool around this time of year, though. They know don't talk to me probably until maybe the middle of December. If we won, I'm gonna talk trash, and if we lost, let me cool down. I don't want to talk.
Funny. James, it's funny. My little brother's a Gator fan, and I sent him a picture this week of our chief over the table with the Gator hat, and it says Gator, on the plate for Thanksgiving. I text him, "It's rivalry week, buddy," and he goes, "Yeah, we lost to Vanderbilt. We suck." I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "Okay, you lost to Vanderbilt, but it's still rivalry week. Bring your A game, dude. Let's go." And to me, when I was a kid growing up, I loved watching these games, when I was a kid, because it was like, I got tired of watching Miami dominated. I'm like, when I was a kid, I was like, I hate them. Not when I hate the university, but I just hated the fog coming out of the Orange Bowl, and I'm like, I just wanted to go, and then the wide lefts and right rights and all that stuff, and I was like, this is just irritates me. And then when we took on the Gators, and when I met Steve Spurrier a couple years ago, I was like, I don't like you. It's like, but I respect you as a coach, but I don't like you, but I respect you what you did to Florida and brought them back up from the ashes, and became a powerhouse, and they carried on with Urban Meyer and all that stuff. But it's like, like I got to say, I'm 42 years old. I say, little Chris doesn't like you, and I try to be more respectful to the guy, and he was cool to talk to, but I'm just sitting in my head interviewing and going, I don't like you. Nah, no, thank you. So, do you have that same thing, Adam?
Yeah. It's like, James, I mean, the reason why I became a Florida State fan is because of Bobby Bowden. I always loved hearing the stories of, former players being around him. And, next week is the ACC championship game, and you're fortunate to play in a few ACC championship games down there in Tallahassee. So, what was it like?
Well, I won ACC championships. I played in the very first ACC championship game in Jacksonville, Florida. Now it's in Charlotte, and we played against Virginia Tech. And it was awesome because everybody expected us to lose. Like, nobody gave us a chance to win that game because people felt like we backdoored our way. We started off really, really hot my senior year. And technically, I should have won 4 straight ACC championships. Yes. My junior year was when they expanded the conference, but they took the highest rated team. And I think Virginia Tech might have had one more win than us. So they went to the Orange Bowl. We went to the Gator Bowl. But we whooped that behind. They had Marcus Vick. It was great. Our defense played so well. Willie Reed was like a punt return machine. And our defense, we had like one of the top defenses in the nation. I believe we actually had 4 guys go in the first round off of defense that year. So, those games, and what's crazy is they considered that the start of the lost decade. That's how dominant and how good we were, that ACC championships, conference championships are frowned upon. Like they just give those away. Like, you're supposed to get a conference championship. So, but I got 3 of those. Played at 4 New Year's Day bowls, and it's just such a great conference. I think it's a conference that's been disrespected for no reason, because people feel like the SEC is just so good, and I believe it's a lot of I believe every conference has 1 to 2 teams that can go out and compete with anybody in the nation. And I think the ACC definitely has one in Clemson. I think the way Florida State's playing now, we could probably compete with. Actually, if you look at it, the number 2 team in the SEC, the number 2 team in the ACC beat, or number 3 team in the ACC beat. So that proves that you have a better conference right now. But I think it's those games and trying to play and be elite and you're chasing ghosts at Florida State. Like, you are chasing legends. No matter what position. And I tell local kids all the time from Tallahassee, as I was from there, kind of a challenge and a little rib shot at them is like, I get it. I get why you wouldn't want to go to Florida State. They say, why, big game? I say, because you're from here. And if you're not good enough to turn them around or live to the expectations of what's been led for you, where are you going to go? You can go to Alabama, suck and never play, but at least you get to come back home because nobody ever saw it. But if you suck in Tallahassee, everywhere you go, all you get to hear about is how bad you guys are. So, like, it's hard. And that's what I think people don't realize it. But I think it's what Mike is starting to do now, bringing it back a little bit, bringing that energy, getting it done in recruiting. The last week has been pretty impressive. And we should have about 2-3 more flips happening this week, which could potentially give Florida State, will give Florida State its first top 15, maybe top 10 class in quite some time. So imagine finishing 10-3, possibly finishing top 10 and having a top 10 class. And I think, that's awesome.
That's cool. Well, James, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I love having you on. I love talking Florida State football, and enjoy the game Friday night. Hopefully call I have a name for it, the Black Friday Massacre for the Gators.
That would be awesome, man. Like the Indians kill some gators and eat gator tail. That would be awesome.
Exactly. Well, I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for coming on.
All right, man. You as well.
All right, see. Bye.
Thanks, James.
That's James Coleman, former running back from Florida State. We're going to wrap up the show with a local tradition here, a Turkey Bowl game between Calvert Hall, who we were trying to get the Calvert Hall coach on, but he didn't get on, Coach Ward. But we have Anthony Simon, who is a coach for Loyola and the Dons, and I drove past Loyola High School the other day and had beat Hall on the grass.
That's it was
really cool. It's like the old
game
school,
up there in Maryland. Hillcrest.
Yeah. And a little backstory: Anthony played his college ball at Louisiana State University. So first of all, what did you think about Brian Kelly? What's your take on him?
I think Brian Kelly is a perfect example of this in football. If you win, you're a golden man. And I think when he first got to LSU, a lot of people were criticizing him because there were a couple of videos of him dancing with recruits, a little off rhythm. And then there was also he was introduced to the basketball game, and people said that he had a long Southern drawl, or he said, "You are my family," and he overstressed the family part to sound Southern. But I told him, a couple of our coaches on our staff are huge Notre Dame fans, and they were like, "What do you think about him talking like a Southerner?" I said, "I got news for you. If he wins, he can talk however he wants to." And right now, I just heard your previous guest on who's mentioning the Florida State win over LSU, and boy, how like a season can change, because now they don't look like the same team that played in that game back in early September.
No, they look totally different. And at the time, they were like, Brian Kelly lost that game, and they were like, down there in Baton Rouge is like, "Oh my God, he lost to Florida State. We won. What's going on here?" And we have George, who comes on our show and helps out. George Bashara, he's from Indiana. He's a big Notre Dame guy. And I said, "What'd you think about it?" He goes, "I'm glad he lost." Yeah, but it's like now it's like he doesn't want to talk about it. But I feel like Brian Kelly finally got something going down there. It took a little while, but maybe he had to go to the SEC to make himself better than Notre Maybe Notre Dame maybe he was running into like nothing else to do at Notre Dame.
Sometimes I think in sports, I think Brian Kelly might be a good example of this. I think you can have a situation where it's a win-win for everybody. So it's a win-win for Brian Kelly. He's now, he's making a lot of money. He's coaching in the competitive league, and he's got a new energy and new freshness about him. And then at the same time, Notre Dame's got a young up-and-coming coach. And, I think Brian Kelly was probably expecting to bring some more Notre Dame staffers with them to Baton Rouge, but at the same time, it's like I think right now, I think LSU fans are very pleased. I mean, they're going to the SEC championship game in year one.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome for them. And one of the things I've actually been most impressed with him by, and this is more the coach in me, it's hard to see people get better from the beginning of the season through the middle of the season and all the way through. So a lot of times, like, you hit a rough spot in your season and you stumble a little bit. But after that Florida State game, he had an amazing way of just kind of getting them to just keep improving. Like, it's kind of hard in the college game because kids have a lot of things going on. They're stressed, and I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, Adam, you got a question for me?
Now, switching gears, since you are a high school football coach, let's talk about this rivalry game against Calvert Hall on Thanksgiving. I believe it's being played at Towson University, and it's being televised up there. So, talk to us about this rivalry game against Calvert Hall on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so it's the 102nd Turkey Bowl, and it's pretty cool for everyone involved. I mean, for Loyola, for Calvert Hall. You mentioned driving by there on our school campus. Every year we usually paint. You can see our school from Charles Street as you're driving up towards I-83, and we always paint the grass. We always paint it, beat the hall and all that. And we had our pep rally today. There's a ton of buzz and energy and excitement. So that's pretty cool. But the game's really special. It'll be very intense. We won the game last year for the first time since 2013. And Calvert Hall is an amazing football team. We know that, and we're excited. It's one of these things where there are a lot of kids who play in the game, whose folks, they know a lot of people who've played in the game, go to the game, watch the game, involved in a great number of ways. And so for us, that's what it's about, and we're just excited to keep on our school tradition.
And it's 10:30, Thursday morning, so a lot of people, in this area, like, they're still getting themselves waking up, and they're going, okay, should I watch the Macy's parade or watch the game on Channel 2?
Yeah, exactly. So for us, a good chunk of it is, hey, turn it on. It's an actual televised game, and what I think is unique about that compared to, say, like a lot of our games, a regular season game, are live streamed where we have like student announcers and, they're learning the ways of broadcasting and, things like that. And it's not like, there's no TV commercial. No, these are, Scott Garceau and Keith Mills, who are professionals. They call the game. There's the entire ABC TV crew. So I think for a lot of the kids, it's really cool to be out there and see, hey, this is like a legit thing. And I think, they get so excited about it, and there's just a lot of pride and joy.
And then did you guys get done with the playoffs? Or are you still in the playoffs, or is
we were the last team out, or first team out of the playoffs?
Okay.
We've just been waiting on this game for a few weeks now, so
wow.
we're looking forward to it. It feels like an eternity since we last played a game, but we're excited.
Yeah, how do you get your players ready for this thing? You haven't played in like 2 weeks, because I know a lot of teams who have 2 weeks off, they forget how to snap the ball, and they forget the plays. And you guys must be practicing, scrimmaging. Are you calling other local schools like, hey, you want to come over and practice?
We actually tried that, and then we were unsuccessful in getting someone, because there's nothing like live competition. Like, you can practice and simulate this, that, and the other, but
yeah.
And we've tried to get as intense of a practice environment as we can, but the reality is nothing is going to get you ready for the game until you actually have those first few reps. And that may sound kind of silly, but that's just the reality. What we did is we've had like 2.5, almost 3 weeks off. So what we did was the first week, we just gave everybody off. Football season tomorrow or Thursday when we play the game will be month 4 from the first day we practice. So a 4-month season. Grueling weeks, 16 weeks of just physicality, and bodies are aching. Everyone's got a nick and bruise. And so for us, it's just kind of like, all right, well, if that's the case, let's let everybody's bodies heal. So that's what we did the first week. And then what I tried to do was treat it like how when I was in college, when we would have bowl prep. So a lot of times we'd finish like my senior year, we won the SEC championship game on the first Saturday of December, and then we didn't play the national championship game until January 8th. So we had about a month off, and essentially that's what we did is we took about a week off, and then we strictly had fundamentals-based practice, because I think one of the mistakes you can make if you have a lot of time off is try to reinvent the wheel, try to create all these new plays. But what you kind of realize is that over the course of a season, you get a little rusty and you want to clean up some of the fundamentals. So that's what we've tried to do.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, Coach, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I know you got a lot of stuff to do, and that game is 10 o'clock on this Thursday morning on ABC2 in Baltimore if you want to tune in. Or you can if you're down in North Carolina, Adam, you can actually go online and watch it.
I'll probably find a way to watch.
WMAR, you go to their website, the Channel 2 news affiliate here, WMAR, they'll have it on their website, and yeah, it'll be awesome. They're anticipating anywhere from 8 to 10,000 fans in the house, so it should be pretty electric.
Yeah. Before I let you go, are you going down to Atlanta next week for the SEC title game, or are you going to stick around and watch it on TV?
I would love to go to Atlanta. So if you have any connection with Coach Kelly, tell him I'm more than happy to.
Oh, he doesn't like me. He yelled at me a couple of years ago. I asked him when they played against Alabama. I asked him about his wide receiver in Alabama, and he yelled at me on the Zoom call. He's like, "You're not paying attention." I'm like, what? And then I got him again. I got him last year before he left to Notre Dame. I go, so your first win is against your first ever win in Notre Dame was against Purdue. Yeah, what was it like beating Purdue on your first ever win? And he's like, looking on Zoom, going, I didn't know I played. Did I beat him? He goes, I don't know what I had for breakfast that morning. I was like, yeah, I was like, I got him. And I was like, don't even, yeah.
I actually watched them. I've actually seen the Tigers play live this year. I actually went down to Gainesville, Florida. I heard your buddy talking about Florida. I went to the LSU Florida game in Gainesville. We played the night before.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have friends on the coaching staff there and wanted to support them. And so it was pretty cool to be down there for that. Didn't work out in the Gators' favor that day, but I actually think that was the game that kind of turned LSU's season favorably. Their offense exploded that game.
That's true. Exactly.
But I really appreciate you guys promoting our game and promoting high school sports. And I know that you all are busy people as well. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, thanks for coming on, and enjoy your Thanksgiving, and go. Hope you have a great game on Thursday morning, and bring home another win.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great night.
All right, you too. Talk to you soon.
Exactly.
Bye. All right, that's the head coach of Loyola High School here, Coach Anthony Zehyoue. So we're done for the night there, Adam.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Let me type this in for you folks here.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving from my family to everyone watching. We thank you for spending Tuesday nights with us, and enjoy all the football on Thursday, all the college football rivalry games on this weekend, and
exactly. And
we'll be back next Tuesday with talking college football championship Saturday.
Yes, and if you decide not to watch the Turkey Bowl, you can watch the Macy's Day Parade. They're doing all those plays and all that stuff. The Neil Diamond musical is going to be. They're going to showcase that in front of Macy's Thursday morning, and it's basically it's about Neil Diamond's whole life.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really cool. So here's a little clip of it, real quick. So so you can see what they're talking about. So hold on a second.
40 top 40 hits, 120 million albums sold.
Kill you to smile, make them like you.
My first ever live performance.
How did it make you feel?
A lot. I'm just counting up my blessings.
And
I'm still counting.
Okay, very interesting. So if you're a big Neil Diamond nut like me, I'm hoping they come around next year here to Baltimore. That'll be cool. and see that. It might be neat to bring my mother down there. So anyway, so we'll leave you tonight with Pearl Jam on this date back in, we have a little Pearl Jam here. Let me bring this up here. Back on November 22nd, 1994, Pearl Jam released their third album, Vitalogy, which first released on vinyl. Then it became the first vinyl album to appear on the U.S. charts since it was been dominated by CDs. That's pretty interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll leave you with a little classic clip of Hail Hail, and we'll see you all next Tuesday night here at the Old K Corral. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody, and we'll see you all next Tuesday. Adam, happy birthday to you, and have a great
Chris, I appreciate that.
birthday. We want to hear all about it next Tuesday, okay?
You sure will. Sure will. It's called.
We'll leave you with
See you later, everybody.
See ya.